Chairman, I've had confirmation that the live stream has started.
Right, thank you. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this virtual meeting of the West Sub-Area Planning Committee. Before consideration of today's business, I'll outline the protocols for the meeting. Today's meeting is being live streamed to the public via Microsoft Teams and is also being recorded. When members are speaking, they may choose to use their video. If the Council's live stream fails during the meeting and we cannot share the proceedings, I will adjourn the meeting so that access can be restored. If the issue cannot be resolved, I will halt the meeting and the remaining business will be concluded at a future date. If a member experiences a technical issue, I'll adjourn for a short period to try and re-establish their connection. As I call members to speak, I'll remind you to switch on your microphone. If for some reason you cannot be heard, the Democratic officer will advise you. The vote will be taken by a roll call of committee members by the Democratic officers. Members must be present for the duration of the discussion on each planning application in order to be able to vote. We have public speakers at the meeting today and they'll be joining the meeting by telephone. Where a member has declared a non-registrable interest, a disclosable pecuniary interest, or an interest by virtue of any trade union membership in a matter that they must they must leave the virtual meeting. Their departure will be confirmed and they will be invited to rejoin the meeting at the appropriate time. To confirm the procedure for today's meeting is that members of the committee who wish to speak on an item should indicate by using the raise your hand function, which is being monitored by the Vice Chair. Any members not on the committee or unable to use the raise your hand function who wish to ask a question should indicate by typing an X in the chat box. Before the start of today's business, I'll ask Democratic Services Officer to ask the committee members to confirm that they are present and to state their electoral division. Over to you, Angela. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Bastin.
Good morning, John Bastin, Councillor for Constantine, Morland and Budok.
Councillor Taylor.
Apologies, I'm just unmuting. Councillor Linda Taylor, Councillor for Carpus Bainey Land.
Councillor Code.
Graham Code, Councillor for Hales South.
Councillor Hawkins.
Councillor Hawkins for St Barrion, substituting for Councillor Duffin.
Councillor Eakin-Smith.
Good morning, David Eakin-Smith, Councillor for 11.
Councillor Harding.
Good morning again, Roger Harding, Newlyn Mousel Division.
Councillor Hurd.
Good morning, Councillor John Hurd for Cambon Pendorvis Division.
Councillor Kaczmarek.
Good morning, Councillor Mark Kaczmarek, Caharrock, Gwanap and St Day Electoral Division.
Councillor Martin.
Good morning, John Martin, Councillor for Helston South.
Councillor Nicholas.
Good morning, Councillor Sue Nicholas for Marizine Perinathno Division.
Councillor Pascoe.
Good morning, Councillor Lionel Pascoe for Gwynedd Gwydion and St Earth.
Councillor Simmons.
Yes, good morning, Councillor Simmons, Penryn East and Myler.
Councillor John Thomas.
Good morning, Cornwall Councillor John Thomas, Electoral Divisional Member for Lanner and Stithians.
And Councillor Mike Thomas.
Good morning, everyone. Councillor Mike Thomas, Member for Helston North.
Thank you. That's the members of the committee. The officers present at the meeting is myself, Angela Saunders from Democratic Services. We have Mark Broomhead, Peter Gregory, Kera Goody, Adam Carlyon, Diane Boardman and Hannah England from Planning, Ben Kerno from Legal, Robin Watson from Highways, and the meeting producer today is Rowena Brebner. Sorry, thank you, Chairman.
Right, thank you. So with that, we go on to agenda item 1. That's apologies. Are there any apologies?
Yes, I have 2. Councillor Duffin, who's being substituted by Councillor Hawkins, and Councillor Biggs, whose substitute is Councillor Taylor.
Right, thank you. So then we go on to agenda item 2, declaration of interest. Are there any? No, I take it as there are none. So we go on to agenda item 3, which that's the minutes of the previous meeting. I'll go through it page by page. It's page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, and page 5. So if somebody would like to move the accuracy of those minutes. Yeah. So
Second, Chairman.
Yeah, Councillor Thomas and Councillor Thomas, I take it. So all those in favour agree that it is an accurate and true record of that meeting. Please indicate. We'll do that with the hands facility.
Chairman, it does look like the minutes have been approved. Are there anybody against or abstaining? Councillor. Yeah, I think Councillor Taylor is abstaining because she wasn't at the meeting.
Thank you.
I couldn't get my hand facility up. I did try, but it's not responding. Right, so with that, we go on to today's business. There are 6 items on the agenda, and the first item on the agenda, it's 4.1. That's PA 20/07102, Mr. D. Malt. That's Bassett Road, Vogbeloff at Luggan. It's on pages 6 to 21. And I think Peter is going to take us through that one. Can you hear me, Peter?
Morning, Chairman. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you loud and clear, Peter. Are you sharing your screen with us today?
I'll do that now.
Yeah, just let's try that. Yeah, we can see that, Peter, so over to you.
Can see that. Thank you, Chairman. Just to make members aware that we have received two further pieces of written correspondence over the weekend with neighbours raising concerns. They weren't notified of the committee meeting, but it has actually been council policy since the 1st of January 29 that we no longer notify contributors of planning committee meetings. So just to make that clear at this stage. So moving on to the application, the key issues are impact on the character of the area, residential amenity, access and highway safety and drainage. And turning to the location plan, you can see the main settlement of Luggan here. Application site is located to the north of Bassett Road on the northeastern outskirts of the settlement. And here's the site plan. You can see the site here edged in red. Neighbouring properties here to the east, and neighbouring properties and gardens here to the west. Sorry, to the east on that side, to the west on this side. Bassett Road to the south. Our vehicular access is here. The nearest listed buildings are located further to the west on this side. This is the aerial plan of the site. You can see the site at present is just laid to meadow, laid to grass. Vehicular access will come through here, which is an existing access. So that's the site in context there. Turning to the location and block plans, see site location plans again, proposal for 4 dwellings in here. This is the site. You can see the existing access serving this property and its neighbour will be utilised coming in there in that corner. And so that's the site layout plan proposed there. And turning to the proposed block plan again, you can see the new access coming in here off the existing driveway. Plots 4 detached properties, 2 at the rear, 2 larger properties at the rear, and 2 towards the front of the site here. Parking layout, 4 spaces per unit, in accordance with the Luggan neighbourhood plan because of the 4-bedroom nature of the units. And also through the processing of the application, we have included a turning head within the site here in this section for small delivery vehicles, refuse vehicles, to be able to turn in the site so they won't encroach on existing parking areas. And turning to the elevations, dormer style properties that keep the ridge heights down. Ridge heights are approximately 7 metres for the units, as you can see here. So rooms in the roof space, contemporary design, mix of materials as natural stone, cedar cladding, slate for the roofs, and render for the elevations as well. And here's an image here of plots 1 and 2 and the roof plan here. And turning to 3 and 4, plots 3 and 4 to the rear of the site. These are the larger units with the integral garage. Similar design, rooms in the roof space. Also same use of materials, mix of materials, natural materials. And these units here have balconies, raised balconies on the rear elevation, with views out towards the countryside to the north. And again, there's another image there of plots 3 and 4 with the roof plan and floor plan. And this is the existing and proposed site sections, which we have requested, considering the potential neighbour impacts here. So you can see plots 3 and 4 to the rear. The ground will be reduced in level as it slopes. It slopes from west to east at present, so that there will be some cut and fill here. You can see that's the neighbouring property there. To the west of the sites, the plots 3 and 4 will sit there with those levels. Excuse me. Moving down to plots 1 and 2 at the front, you can see there the relationship with the neighbouring properties to the east and west. And turning to this plan, this is the Uluggan and Churchtown settlement boundary. You can see the application site here to the east of the settlement, and that has been included within that settlement boundary. So it is considered that the principle of development or residential development of this site is acceptable in this location. So turning to site photos, here's the site entrance, existing entrance to the 2 properties to the west. New driveway will be formed in this area here. And this is Bassett Road, the main road through Uluggan, or the north of Uluggan, and then that's looking west up the road. Access to the site is in here on the right hand side. And then moving on, looking east, looking back down the road, and the site entrance going in here. You see it's a straight section of highway. This area of planting here will be retained with a new access coming in here. Again, Bassett Road looking east, that's the current visibility from the access to the site and its neighbours. And moving on to the site, this is looking west. This is the neighbouring property with an upper here. The site entrance will come in here. Again, on site looking southwest, you will see Wanapa here on higher ground level to the west of the site. So this is the area of land to be developed with plots 1 and 2. And again, looking west towards the neighbouring properties and driveway. And this is on site looking northwest to the neighbouring property towards the rear of the site. You will see it is on higher ground levels again, where the land falls away to the east. This is the view of the western site boundary, just another view of that. And this is on site looking north back towards the countryside, which adjoins the site in that direction. And this is on site looking northeast, where the ground falls away. This is a neighbouring garden in this area here. Again, a view of the eastern boundary of a neighbouring property here adjoining the site. And again, looking east towards the neighbouring property with a gable end here, which will face plots 1 and 2. And this is the view south towards Bassett Road. So this area, this vegetation here will be retained as part of the proposal. So there is an extant planning permission on the site for 2 dwellings, and you will see this was the layout that was approved for the 2 units with centralised access here. Just noted now that the existing site access will be utilised rather than creating a new entrance onto Bassett Road. So in summing up, it's considered the site is within the settlement boundary for Uluggan and Churchtown in the neighbourhood development plan, and the principle of housing development on this site is considered acceptable. Environmentally, the loss of a small area of paddock will have a degree of impact on local landscape character, but this would not be harmful given the site's suitable integration with the built form of the settlement rather than encroaching into the countryside. It's also noted that there is an extant planning permission for the development of this site for 2 dwellings. The development will have an acceptable impact on the local highway network, and the amenities of existing residents and site surface water drainage can be dealt with by suitable planning conditions. And there are no adverse impacts that outweigh the social and economic benefits of providing 4 new dwellings, and on balance, the application is supported. So the recommendation is approval with conditions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Peter. We have got speakers on this one. The first one is Mr. Gary Cullimore. Can you hear me, Mr. Cullimore?
I certainly can, yes.
Yeah, right. Good morning. Welcome to the meeting. Thank you for attending. The usual format will be that you've got 3 minutes to speak. That time will start from when you start speaking. and we'll give you a prompt when it's 30 seconds to go. So over to you, Mr. Collymore.
Thank you very much. My name is Gary Collymore and I live in a property named Up Yonder. I'm speaking on behalf of all the immediate residents affected by this development, and we all object to it. The proposed entrance has a considerable gradient of 1 in 6.7, which is incredibly steep. It also has a large camber and it hits a chicane when entering the site. Fire engines will ground on the road and won't be able to access the site and won't be able to go around the chicane. We have had deliveries to our own place and they're not able to get up the drive, and refuse lorries cannot enter from the bottom coming up our straight drive. They have to do it from the road. With regard to access, the poor visibility when leaving Up Yonder and Wanappa's driveway, due to the site having a blind exit, in icy conditions, we have a bunker of salt which we use to grip the drive, and it would become dangerous for us meeting up to 12 different cars leaving their site. I'm also wheelchair bound and require unimpeded access to my driveway all the time. When building these properties, they will undoubtedly block the driveway continuously when delivering, as they would not be able to enter the site. The architects have had no consideration for neighbours. Plots 3 and 4 have an elevated position looking over Goodwill's garden, and all of the front windows and viewing galleries look straight into Goodwill's children's bedrooms and their downstairs living spaces. We think this is unacceptable. When building Up Yonder, we were told to keep the windows small and make use of natural light to keep our energy efficiency rating low. As Up Yonder faces east, all of our windows for our kitchen, living and dining room areas will be blocked from natural light, as the architects have put the gable end of plot 3 in the front of our small windows. This in turn will plunge us into darkness without us leaving lights on all day. The whole development is not in keeping with the immediate area. All of the individual plots are spaced out and afford each other privacy. Cramming this amount of housing in a small area is wholly inappropriate. We have noticed from some of the comments that this area is an eyesore and should be developed. The plot cannot be seen because there's a 15-foot high hedge around it. The only people that can see the plot are the neighbours I am representing, and we are happy to see, because there is an abundant amount of wildlife in the paddock which we all enjoy watching. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Collymore. If you could just wait a moment, just while I check, see if any of the members got a question for you. Right, over to members. If you've got any questions of Mr. Collymore, I would remind you it should be on clarification. Has any member got a question? No.
I can't see any hands raised.
No, it doesn't look like it. Well, once again, thank you very much for attending this morning, Mr. Collymore. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. Right, the next speaker is Councillor Maggie Thompson from Iluggan Parish Council. Are you there, Councillor Thompson?
I am indeed, Chairman. Good morning.
Yeah, I expect you're aware of the format, but I'll just remind you, once you start speaking, it will be 3 minutes, and then we'll give you a prompt when it's 30 seconds to go. So over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, all. Further to our previous objections to this application, Iluggan Parish Council maintains its objections from the previously approved application for only 2 dwelling houses with the following concerns, and so argues that this application is causing planning harm as identified and defined in the Standard Guide to Parish Town Councils of Cornwall Council. The relevant policies are that the application fails to maintain the distinctiveness of Iluggan's rural character, contrary to Policy 23 of CLP and Policy PH4, paragraphs C, D and E of our Neighbourhood Development Plan. Following the precise identified arguments within the document, severe harm to highway safety, that the increased development will have a severely harmful impact on the local highway network, in particular in the access and egress planned for the site, notwithstanding the much disputed highway officer's comments in paragraphs 12, 28 and 29 in the papers in front of you. The consequential increase in traffic flow from this point will result in increased hazards both for drivers and pedestrians on this busy principal route to the A30 interchange. The proposed new access and egress position will present further hazards by the very nature of the land gradient, the proposed width of access point, and because of the amount of traffic likely to use the driveway. There will be a blind spot from Winapa and up yonder. There is no proposed safe footway on the site side by the access point leading to the village, contrary to the view of the highway officer. Increased risk of flooding. The drainage system and tanks in the area are most times at full capacity, both for sewerage and storm water, and thus they are unlikely to support the development of further housing beyond the 2 extra residences already approved. Runoff onto the main road from the site will be further exacerbated. Loss of residential amenity to the neighbouring properties resulting from the placement of the proposed new buildings 3 and 4 at the rear of the plot due to the loss of light and an overbearing nature of proposed houses. In conclusion, this application is not sustainable economically, socially or environmentally. The economic gain is short-term. There is no discernible social gain. Already there are insufficient places at local schools and GP surgeries, together with the environmental damage in the change in visual amenities and all the noted impacts of this application. There are also issues of light pollution and privacy, and these would be worsened by this proposed increase.
Right, that's time. Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. That's all I had to say.
Yeah, if you could just wait, just in case any member's got a question for you. Has any member got a question for Councillor Thompson? No, appears not. Well, thank you very much, Councillor Thompson, for coming to this morning's meeting. So with that, we go on to the divisional member, which is Councillor David Ecclesmith. You there, David?
Yes.
Yeah. Over to you. If you get 5 minutes, usual thing, as you well know, we'll be asking you to wind up. Over to you.
In the interest of my colleagues, I should do my best to keep below that, Chairman. Right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for this, Chairman. Firstly, to say that I had to make 2 apologies. One for having to bring this application to the committee once again, following as it does 2 previous applications and a very well-attended site visit. It's very disappointing that we should be in this position. Second, there is an error in my statement on paragraph 10, second paragraph of your report. It should read, specifically, the proposed application is a revision of the previously submitted application that increases the number of additional dwellings to 4 rather than the 2 previously approved. I must have had a brainstorm when I wrote that other one. In the second of the previous applications, which was PA 19/04596, there is a report prepared by Montague Town Planning Limited explaining why the number of properties in that application had been reduced from 2 from the 8 previously submitted under PA 17/01621. I just quote the committee's then reasons for the refusal. We stated, the site occupies a prominent location between Bassett Road and the public right-of-way to the north and forms an attractive rural setting to the edge of the settlement in this location. The development of this parcel of land with modern housing would clearly erode the rural character of this location and cause material harm to the amenities of the area through adverse urbanisation. The development would therefore cause material environmental harm to the rural character of the area on the edge of the settlement, which is contrary to policies 1, 2, 12 and 23 in the Cornwall Local Plan Strategic Policies 2010 to 2030 and paragraphs 7, 14, 17, 58, 61 and 109 in the NPPF 2012. It is also, incidentally, contrary to the Luggan Neighbourhood Plan PH3 and PH4. The report goes on to state that the application for a reduced number of 2 properties followed, quote, discussions with owners of neighbouring properties who were all opposed to the application. and continues, quote, the outcome of the above mentioned discussions is reflected in the amount of development proposed, as well as the design, appearance, height and siting of these dwellings on the application site, end quote. This new application was reluctantly accepted by the local community as being more in keeping with the existing built form of the area. It still needs to be strictly conditioned to meet the highway drainage and other concerns raised. The application in front of you is presented by a new owner, and the doubling of the number of properties is a return to the overdevelopment of the original application, as it amounts to the urbanisation of a rural site out of character with other properties in the vicinity. I therefore have to disagree with paragraph 4 of the report, as the addition of 2 substantial properties causes harm to the rural environment and local built form, as the former first application did. I will not repeat the point so well made by Mr. Cullimore and Councillor Thompson, other than to reinforce the view of the Parish Council that failure to satisfactorily resolve the highway's access and egress safety issues related to a lack of suitable and the lack of a suitable pavement for safe walking towards Iluggan will store problems for the future should the application be approved. This site is on land that slopes significantly, that not only ensures these additional properties will be clearly visible from a good distance away, but will overlook neighbouring properties further downhill and remove a lot of the national drainage. Iluggan in general has no shortage of large properties of this type, as we propose here, and it does not have a need for additional ones. It does have a need for smaller affordable homes, but this will certainly not meet the needs of any of our families in that way. In conclusion, Chairman, I contend that this is an unacceptable attempt to build more properties on this site on the countryside fringe. The cumulative effect is to reduce green spaces and accelerate urbanisation without good reason, and flies in the face of Cornwall's stated environmental objectives. This application fails to justify the doubling of the number of properties and will cause greater harm than benefit. I respectfully ask the committee to refuse it. Thank you, Chairman.
Right, thank you, David. Has any of the committee members got any questions for Councillor Atkins-Smith on clarification? No, it didn't appear to. Right, we go on to any questions of the officers. No, we don't. Has the officers got? Sorry, Councillor Nicholas.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm just a bit concerned about the overlooking, which is obviously something that has been identified, because when you read in the report, they're suggesting a lot of obscure glazing. So my concern is about overdevelopment of the site and also the overlooking on the neighbours. Can you answer that in terms of what are the visual displays from the properties?
Mr. Broomhead, do you want to take that or delegate it?
Yeah, we have got a on page 20. We have looked at that, and we've got a condition. Condition 6: before the first occupation of the dwelling by permitted first floor windows on the northwest elevation of plot 1 and south east elevation of plot 4 should be fitted with obscure glazing.
Yeah, I noted that. So that means that there is a concern then of overlooking, and also will those windows be shut and permanently shut? Because if you can open them, then there will not be a security against people overlooking other properties.
Well, the condition says to be obscure glazed. Obviously, if members feel that's important, you can add that to the condition.
Thank you. Were there any other questions, Angela?
Yes, Councillor Mike Thomas.
Yeah. Over to you, Mike.
Yes, thank you, Roger. I'm struggling to understand this application in terms of the entrance, because the slide with the arrow pointing to where the entrance is seems to be showing the arrow closer to the road, whereas the plan itself shows the entrance further up the first residence point. Could I have some clarification about this? Because there would be some removal of shrubbery, because the part of this application celebrates the fact that there won't be a lot of shrubbery removed. But I can't work out. I'm struggling to understand that the entrance.
The entrance is as shown on the plan, which is an existing entrance that serves the other two properties. Right. There is a entrance going in roughly where the blue arrow is off that. If you go to the block plan there, Peter, if you can, it might make it clearer. So you can see that area there is the existing. Then they're coming in off that point there.
Okay.
But the original approval, if you go to original approval,
I've seen that.
That shows a completely new entrance taken away.
Yes,
is that clear?
Yes, but it's still, the arrow on the picture seems to imply that the greenery is going to be got rid of where that entrance to Wenapper is.
Well, there will be obviously some removal of some greenery, but the original permission obviously had a lot more removed in any event.
Okay, so I know you're going to say it's not an appropriate question, but I'll still ask it rather. Is it, whose land is this in ownership of here?
Well, as far as I'm aware, the correct certificates have been completed, and that is not an appropriate material consideration.
Yeah, I knew you'd say that, but I had to ask it. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Broomhead.
Thank you. Do you have any further questions, Angela? Any indications?
Yeah, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. If I could go to page 18, there's been an issue in relation to a pose, which is the storage of waste and recycling. I wonder if somebody could address that issue for me, please.
Page 18, what paragraph?
It's the very last, it's under the oppose. It's actually got site visits required, and then it's got storage of waste and recycling. And it's just before the assessment of key planning issues. Oh. It's been highlighted, and I feel sure there's going to be an answer for that one.
Storage. You mean page 14, not 18, didn't you?
Oh, I'm looking at it on my additional screen, so apologies.
I mean, that's an objection, and there is adequate space on the site to allow for storage of waste and recycling.
Lovely, thank you, Mark. I thought there would be. I just wanted to have that established. Thanks.
Angela, have you got any further speakers?
No, I can't see any, Chairman.
Okay. Did any of the officers have any further comments they want to make? No. If not, right, I'll open it up to the committee for debate and hopefully a recommendation at some stage. So over to the committee. Anybody wish? Oh, right. Councillor Nicholas.
Thanks. I'll start. Yeah, on page 18, on section 32, we've just been told that none of the hedgerows are going to be removed, and then yes, there are parts of the hedgerow going to be removed. What concerns me is, are we looking at any biodiversity offsets? Because in paragraph 32, it says it's not considered that protected species are likely to be present given the characteristics of the site. But if it's open scrubland at the minute, I would suggest that something needed to be looked at in terms of there might be wildlife that are actually living in there. The other thing that concerns me is the size that we're getting bungalows and dormer bungalows to be. Most of them are turning out to be more like a house than a bungalow. So I just think that, you know, if they've got permission for 2 and these are going to be such large properties, I'm concerned that there's overlooking because we're putting in obscured glaze. So obviously there's an overlooking issue. Generally, I don't think it's very well planned.
Right, thank you. Angela, are there any other speakers?
Yeah, Councillor
Chairman, did you want me to answer Councillor Nicholas or not?
Well, if you want to come in at this stage, I was going to wait until later.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I could say now.
Yeah, there's no requirement in this particular size of application to provide any biodiversity enhancements. you've got to bear in mind the site can already be changed to complete domestication by virtue of the extant permission. So in this particular case, that wouldn't be a justification to refuse the application. In addition, Councillor Nicholas mentioned overlooking, but as we pointed out before, there are conditions to prevent overlooking of the immediate neighbouring properties.
Right, thank you. Yeah, Angela, got any further speakers?
Yeah, Councillor Kaczmarek.
Yeah, over to you, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, it is a difficult one. We had a site meeting here 2 or 3 years ago, and we all flagged up our concerns about the road, the steepness of the ground, and that application at that time was turned down. Subsequently, a further application came in, and it was supported by the planning committee for 2 dwellings. And once that's been supported, it's very difficult now because you have some parcels of land within the development boundary which are underutilised. So, you know, I've got every sympathy with the neighbours there, but I think in planning grounds, we haven't got any real options to refuse this. The neighbours said about blocking out light. The planning officers don't believe it's blocking out light. 4 dwellings instead of 2, the access is already there or will be already there. And so I think the original application that we did approve has helped the applicant get a further 2 in there, and whether we like it or not, I think that's us planning for you. So I think we have no other option than to support the application recommendation as it stands with the conditions. So I'll be moving that, Chairman.
Yeah, right. So that's been moved, the recommendation as per agenda. Is there a seconder for that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's Councillor Coate, is it?
Yeah, my hand's up.
Did you want to speak, Graham? Or
yes, briefly. I mean, Mark has said what I've said. There's bags of room for an extra 2 houses. If the slope and so forth is good enough for 2, then it's good enough for 4. The overlooking issue is covered by the requirement to have obscure glazing. I can see also no reason why we could reasonably object to this application, and I second its approval.
Right, thank you. Angela, have we got any further speakers? I think, did I see Councillor Mike Thomas?
Yeah, Councillor Mike Thomas.
Yeah, over to you, Mike.
Yes, thank you, Chair. In the same way I was struggling with understanding the entrance to the site, I'm struggling with supporting the application. I fully respect what Councillors Kaczmarek and Coate have said. We spent hours, it seems, on previous applications, and what came back to us seemed to be a good use of the land in that area, and at no point was it ever considered that the land beyond what we approved would be accepted. So I'm finding it very difficult, and I understand the way that Councillor Kaczmarek has put it, that in a sense, us approving a plan has then led into another plan being submitted, which we then have to support, which I find very, very hard, and I think the public will find difficult to understand. So I really am struggling with this application, and I'm really not sure at this stage how we're going to vote. So I'd be interested in who anybody else thinks about this who also attended the site meeting. We had a good attendance once I found it. That site, and I'd be interested to know what other people think before we go to a vote.
Yeah. Right, thank you. Yeah, Angela, have we got any further speakers?
Yes, Councillor Hurd.
Yeah, over to you, John.
Yes, I remember the site visit very well, and I'm concerned about this. We obviously came up with a great number of reasons why we couldn't put 4 houses in there. Then it come back for a 2. And we agreed that one, but the reasons we objected to 4 properties in that space are still relevant. So I don't think I can support it either.
Right, thank you. Are there any further speakers, Angela?
I can't see any, Chairman.
No. Right. If that's the end of the speakers, then I'll put it to the vote. What we'll be voting for will be the recommendation as printed in the agenda, which is for approval. So over to you, Angela, if you'd like to do the roll call, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Bastin.
Against.
Councillor Taylor.
Against.
Councillor Code.
For.
Councillor Hawkins.
Against.
Councillor Harding.
Against.
Councillor Hurd.
Against.
Councillor Kaczmarek.
For.
Councillor Martin.
Against.
Councillor Nicholas.
Against.
Councillor Pascoe.
Against.
Councillor Simmons.
Against.
Councillor John Thomas.
Against.
Councillor Mike Thomas.
Against.
Thank you. I'll just count those up a moment. That hasn't gone through, Chairman, because we've had 2 votes for, 11 against and no abstentions.
Right, so
So
that
nothing
one's
on the
fallen,
table.
so we now need a further recommendation. Would one of the members like to move a further recommendation? Have we got anybody wishing to speak?
Chairman, nobody's indicated yet.
Right, Councillor Hurd.
If nobody else will do it, I'll recommend refusal on the same grounds as we refused 4 houses previously.
Yep. Mr. Broomhead, would you like to come in on that?
Well, I listened to Councillor Hurd earlier, and I'll, if he's happy, if we get a seconder, I can focus on those issues, and they're similar to what Councillor Ecclesfife said.
Yeah, I think Councillor John Martin, did you wish to speak, or were you seconding Councillor Hurd?
Yes, just a second, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, right, back to you, Mr. Broomhead, then, please.
This is for the reason for refusal. Having listened to yourselves, the site occupies a prominent location between Bassett Road to the south and the public right-of-way to the north, and forms an attractive rural setting to the edge of the settlement in this location. The development of this parcel of land with 4 modern dwellings would clearly erode the rural character of this location and cause material harm to the amenities of the area through adverse urbanisation. The development would therefore cause material environmental harm to the rural character of the area on the edge of the settlement, which is contrary to policies 1 to 12 and 23 of the Cornwall Local Plan, policies PH3, and did you want PH4 as well in the Ilugga Neighbourhood Plan, and paragraphs 8, 127 and 117 of the National Planning Policy Framework?
Yeah, Councillor Hurd, you're the mover. Are you happy what Mr. Broomhead said?
Absolutely.
And, yeah, and did you want the Ilugga Neighbourhood Plan?
Yes, include that, please.
Yeah, you're happy with that, Councillor Martin?
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Well, I'll put that to the vote then. So the proposal would be for refusal, which is contrary to the officer's recommendation, and it would be on the grounds that have just been read out by Mr. Broomhead. So over to you, Angela.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Bastin.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
For.
Against.
Councillor Hawkins.
For.
Councillor Harding.
For.
Councillor Hurd.
For.
Marek.
Against.
Councillor Martin.
For.
Councillor Nicholas.
For.
Councillor Pascoe.
For.
Councillor Simmons.
For.
Councillor John Thomas.
For.
And Councillor Mike Thomas.
For.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll just count that up quickly. Yeah, the refusal has been passed by 11 votes in favour, 2 against and no abstentions.
Right, thank you, Angela. So with that, we go on to item 4.2, that's PA 20/08644, Mrs. B. Wright, Tamarisk, 23 Penmere Terrace, Hale. The report is on pages 22 to 33, and Adam's introducing that one. Can you hear me, Adam?
I can, Chair. Good morning. Bear me a second while I try and share my screen.
Yeah. Yeah, we can see that. So over to you, Adam.
Yeah. Okay, so like Councillor Harding was saying, this is an application for a change of use of a residential dwelling to a house in multiple occupation for supported housing, together with minor alterations to the garage, including replacement of doors with windows to match those in the existing dwelling. So the key issues, which we'll come back to at the end, are whether this is a suitable site for the proposed development. So as you can see here, the site is situated towards the northeastern side of Hale. Going in a bit closer, you can see the site in a bit more detail there. So it's a former residential dwelling which remains the lawful use. You can see residential uses to the south, east and north, south, west and north. To the east, for context, you've got the Lidl supermarket there and the A30 further across to the east. This is an aerial shot of the site. So as you can see, it's well, you can see it's a standard residential type unit with some soft landscaping to the south, and you can see the Lidl supermarket in a bit more detail, together with its car park as well. This is the existing topographical survey of the property. Doesn't show an awful lot of detail, but it just gives you an indication of the scale of the property and the surrounding features as well. Moving on to the floor plans now. So you've got the existing floor plans, which show the existing configuration of the property, which was last used as a bed and breakfast, albeit without the necessary planning permission. And moving to the next floor plan, you can see some minor configuration work required to facilitate the proposed development. So the existing proposed elevations at the top, you can see the existing front northwest and northeast elevations, and beneath it you can see the modest changes required to facilitate the change of use. So as you can see from top to bottom, you've got a garage door being replaced with a window. Then on the side elevation, some minor configuration works as well. Moving to the photographs, so this is the existing property taken from the public highway. This is moving around to the north now, so you've got a stream which borders the site's northern boundary and an access lane to residential properties further to the north. This is taken from the south, looking towards the property from the north. So as you can see, it's enclosed by established hedgerows at present, which are proposed to remain. And this is the neighbouring dwelling off to the west of the site, which immediately adjoins the property. So in terms of the balance of considerations, the local concerns which have been expressed are fully understood, as this is a type of development which is likely to accommodate individuals with complex needs. However, as set out in the report, there is a great need for such accommodation in the west of Cornwall, including Hale. This is also supported in planning policy guidance contained in the Cornwall Local Plan, as well as the Hale Neighbourhood Plan. Furthermore, the applicant has demonstrated a track record of providing such accommodation to a high standard. So with these factors in mind, we're recommending conditional approval of the application. I'll draw members' attention to the addendum, which includes a correction in terms of the number of people in Hale specifically that require this sort of accommodation, and also a response to an email sent to members of the planning committee before the meeting, just for their own information. So that's the end of the presentation, Chair. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you very much, Adam. Right, we have got speakers on this one. The first one's Mr. Danny Johnson. Can you hear me, Mr. Johnson?
Chairman, it's Angela from Democratic Services. I was getting some background noise from Mr. Johnson, so I had to mute him. So, Mr. Johnson, if you can hear me, can you press *6 on your telephone keypad? Yeah, Mr. Johnson is now unmuted.
Yeah. Good morning. Can you hear me, Mr. Johnson?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear now. It'll be the usual format. You'll have 3 minutes and the time will start when you start speaking, and we'll give you a prompt when it's 30 seconds to go. So when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Right, point number one. In a letter dated the 29th of April 2020 from the Principal Development Officer Area 1 to Penzance Town Council, a similar application in Penzance was recommended for refusal on grounds of existing homes of multiple occupancy and an adverse effect on tourism. This area of Hale already has a home of multiple occupancy within 200 metres of the proposed development, and within a short distance are many campsites and holiday parks favoured by families and children. Hale is second only to Newquay in the number of holiday lets in Cornwall, so the same criteria should really apply here as in Penzance. The application is for change of use, but there's been no attempt to sell the property as a going concern. This is a popular B&B with average ratings on Google of 4.6 out of 5 and excellent. I can find no evidence of marketing the property, no for sale sign has been erected, and no local agent appointed. The loss of these 8 holiday beds and the associated revenue loss to local hospitality businesses is significant. At the Hailtown Council meeting where this application was rejected, the local police put on public record their objections on the grounds of lack of manpower, with only one officer to cover the whole of Hale and St Earth. There are already significant drug issues in Hale. The HMO I mentioned earlier has attracted drug-related complaints from residents. The nearby skate park is often used to sell drugs, and there has recently been arrest at a local hotel of County Lines drug dealers as far afield as Liverpool. On the planning portal, the applicants state that the accommodation will not be used by drug and alcohol users, but this contradicts what was said in the initial communication to residents, where they stated that clients with substance abuses and issues would be among those potentially housed there. And finally, there needs to be more public consultation, which is not currently possible. One-to-one emails and phone calls can't replace a formal public meeting. There were no notices placed on lampposts near the property. The only communication to local residents was a letter hand-delivered to properties nearby. However, there isn't any record of how many of those letters were delivered and to whom. The letters asked for comment via email, which, given the age group of many people in this area, is limiting in itself. Some residents said when we asked them that they didn't receive the letters, in the first place. So generally, I think that people in this area, many of whom I don't think know that this is a proposal because they haven't seen anything or heard anything about it. And I think there needs to be more discussion locally before any decision is made. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Mr. Johnson. If you can just wait, I'll just check if any of the members have got a question for you. Does any member have a question on clarification? We're back to you now, David, for monitoring the members.
We're ready and waiting, Chairman. And I see no questions.
No. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Johnson, for attending today's meeting. Thank you once again. The next speaker we got is Councillor Anne-Marie Rantz from Hailtown Council. Can you hear me, Councillor Rantz?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. It'll be 3 minutes when you start speaking, and we'll give you a prompt when it's 30 seconds to go. So when you're ready.
Okay then. Hailtown Council strongly object to this planning application on several grounds. Firstly, Hale is only second to Newquay in the number of holiday beds. Our population swells massively for at least 6 months of the year. Hale's population are heavily reliant on the seasonal jobs this creates. This planning application will seriously jeopardise this industry and those jobs, as Tamarisk is smack bang right at the entrance to Hale. Every tourist will have to go past this building to get to their accommodation, whether it is in Hale or Gwynia or Gwydion. Any person wanting to visit Gwydion or Godrevi and anyone wanting to go to the local shops or supermarket will have to go past this building. This building is the wrong place for such a facility. Secondly is infrastructure. Our policing team had submitted a letter regarding the application to Cornwall Council Planning Department, which has since been removed from the planning portal to be replaced with a strategic response. The team were concerned that the proposal would increase pressure and take up police time and resources on an already overstretched surface, which has been reduced from 40 officers to the current 1 serving the parishes of Hale, St Hilary, St Earth, Gwynia and Gwydion, and 1 serving St Ives. This proposal would have an adverse effect on the wider community of Hale, and the additional pressure during the holiday season would have a massive impact on resourcing. In conversation with our superintendent, she informed us that Penzance is the priority and that her aspiration was to have an additional officer in Hale. Thirdly, Devon and Cornwall Police commented on the recent North Quay planning application, stating that the large number of homes proposed there would require additional police capacity at Hale, but went on to explain that apparently extra capacity at the existing Hale Tri-Service station was not available for police work, and that an extra officer would need to be accommodated at a proposed extended station at St Ives. Therefore, where is the police infrastructure for Hale to cope with this planning application? It has to be inferred from all this that Penzance has the infrastructure to cope with such a facility, not Hale. It must be said that the county lines have been operating with homeless people, accommodated in budget hotels in Hale. Drugs are regularly sold at the recreation ground
30 seconds left.
and Ellis Park, so much so that Hailtown Council has had to invest in a further CCTV camera. When our maintenance team needed police assistance because of a person actively vandalising the tennis courts, they were laughed at by the police call handler. We need the investment from the police to take back the streets now, before an application of this type is passed, so that we can ensure that our community is safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rantz. If you could just wait, I'll just check, see if there are any questions for you. Has any member got a question for clarification? David, or anybody showing there?
Chairman, it's Angela Saunders. I can't see anything.
No. Okay, right, thank you. Well, thank you very much, Councillor Rantz. Next speaker is Anita Jackson. Can you hear me, Mrs. Jackson?
Chairman, it's Rowena Brebner, meeting producer. I have tried to get hold of Anita Jackson. I've tried 3 times and left 2 messages and sent her an email, and I've had no response, but there's no answer to her telephone. I can't get hold of her at the moment.
So you're happy for me to go on to Councillor Pollard?
I would suggest so. I'll keep trying in the meantime, but I would suggest going to him, yes.
Okay, right. So we go on to the divisional member, which is Councillor John Pollard. Good morning again, John. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, fine. Yeah. It will be 5 minutes, and you know, if we get to 5 minutes, we'll ask you to start to wind up.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed, Roger. Thank you, Chairman. The morning committee, I'm suggesting very strongly this morning that the case to agree to this change of use has not been made. No one doubts that this kind of facility is required, and the papers highlight the need for compassion in dealing with the potential occupants of the facility. This is true, but the need for places or the failure to secure other facilities in West Cornwall cannot outweigh the negative impact which this particular location provides. I would challenge the planning officer's statement of support in the following ways. The officer's report says that the property is situated on the outskirts of Hale. This is misleading. I don't believe it to be true. It is yards from the commercial activity based towards the east of the town and on a busy junction with heavy footfall from the nearby estates and holiday parks. The other facility in West Cornwall that is referred to in the report is made up of self-contained flats and a recently built housing estate far from the nearest main commercial centre. The reports from the senior police officer states the location is a detached building with grounds around it that can be used as communal amenity space. And yet in a letter to me of the 3rd of September, the Home Group Development Officer stated that we will actively discourage any groups gathering in and around our property. I repeat my contention that this is a dormer bungalow which will provide a boarding house with a lounge and communal kitchen. The garden at the front is small, so the use of the word grounds in the officer's report is again misleading in my opinion. In the same letter, the Home Group officer stated, we will develop a close working relationship with the Hale policing team and would encourage them to get to know who is staying at the property. In the unfortunate event of antisocial behaviour incident, we would encourage the local community to contact the local police. In response to this, or knowledge of this, I suggest to you that rightly, Home Group are anticipating that there could be issues. However, we've been told by the local police officers that they do not have the capacity to cope with such a facility in such a location. Of course, senior officers state that they have the agility to cope, hence withdrawing the planning response of the local officers. But at no point in our discussion have the police force contradicted the detail of the local police. On the 12th of November, I received a 2-page letter from Hale and St Ives local neighbourhood policing team, which was clear that despite meeting with representatives of Home Group and Cornwall Council, they were opposed to the planning proposal. The letter stated, although we fully support the work that is being done to assist these types of projects, we feel that Hale is not an appropriate location for this for many reasons, including the fact that with only one police officer at Hale, we just do not have the resourcing to support a project like this that has the potential to generate more issues and crime for the area. Senior police officers, as Councillor Rantz has already quoted, have already objected to new housing in Hale, as they fear that officers on the ground will be too stretched. And it is the location of this house that local police highlight as the main disadvantage to providing the facility. A similar boarding house in a residential holiday area in Penzance was refused. I believe the same principle of this being in the wrong location because of the negative impact on the living conditions of the neighbours applies, and ask you to refuse permission for the change of use. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, John. Are there any questions on clarification from John? Any members showing, David? Hello?
Chairman, it's Angela Saunders. I can't see any hands raised.
No, right. Did I notice, is it as Anita Jackson?
I think she has, Chairman.
Good morning, Chairman. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yeah, is that Anita Jackson?
Yes, speaking. Morning, everybody.
Right. Good morning. Yeah, if you'd like to do your piece in a moment, it'll be 3 minutes, and we'll prompt you when it's 30 seconds to go. So the time will start from when you start speaking. So when you're ready.
Thank you, councillors. My name is Anita Jackson. I'm the local operations manager for the applicant Home Group covering West Cornwall. Home Group has over 40 years' experience in delivering services for disabled people or for those living with a physical or mental health need. 30 of those years have seen us deliver local services in Cornwall. That experience means we are experts in property, and we are delighted that the officers have recognised the appropriate nature of the site at 23 Pedmere Terrace in Hale with a recommendation for approval. This property enables us to deliver the social inclusion and empowering independent service we have been commissioned by Cornwall Council to provide. It is 8 specially supported homes for individuals who require both accommodation and support. Each will have their own bedroom and bathroom. We recognise the importance of keeping people safe and adopt a very robust approach to referral assessment and allocation risk management. The conditions attached to residency are strictly enforced. This service will be staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Waking night staff will be supported by an on-call management team. Their main duties will be to ensure the health and safety of all our customers and the security of the property. We work closely with Devon and Cornwall Police, and we welcome the support given to this application by Chief Inspector Ian Thompson on the planning portal. And I know that this was in the pack that I emailed to you last week. We already successfully provide the same services with accommodation at several other locations in Cornwall. Plus, we support people living with complex needs in the community across West Cornwall, including in Hale. We are aware of the concerns that have been made about the impact on tourism. Pedmere Terrace will look no different from the outside to how it would appear as it was run as a bed and breakfast. Our experience of delivering sites at other popular tourist locations throughout the county shows they simply would not know it is there. Home Group have extensive experience and has shown the need for specially supported housing to be delivered in and as part of the local community. We are aware of the need to be good neighbours and keep the property presentable. This is very much about providing a much needed service for people from West Cornwall in West Cornwall. It is absolutely not about bringing people from further afield. We are aware of the objections on the ground for 23 Penmere Terrace, and it is located at the gateway of Hale. Whilst we agree the property is located off the main junction from the A30, it is not located near the main tourist attraction in the town centre nor the holiday parks. To conclude, I very much hope today you will approve the policy compliant application. It provides a much needed service and meets an identified housing need as supported through policies in the Cornwall Local Plan, the National Planning Policy Framework and the Hale Neighbourhood Development Plan as detailed in our supporting statement and case officers' reports. It will have zero visible impact and the site is at an appropriate distance from the main tourist attraction. We take the strongest possible action in respect of managing risk and security and have the support of Devon and Cornwall Police in delivering this service on this site. Thank you for listening to me today.
Right, thank you, Anita. Looks like we've got some questions. David, can David, can you hear me?
Marcus Marek is first, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Right, Angela, could you just take over? We seem to have lost David for the time.
Yeah, if Councillor Eakin-Smith can hear me, we can't hear you, so it might be worth leaving the meeting and joining again. But Chairman, the first speaker in the list is Councillor Kaczmarek.
Yeah, if I could just remind members, these questions should be for clarification. Right, over to you, Mark.
Just thank you, and just to correct the speaker, that it's Penmere, not Penmere.
Okay, thank you.
The local member did question the information that he's been given on the types of people being treated here. Can you confirm this will not be used for drug and alcohol rehabilitation?
The needs of our customers that we work with are all complex needs, and there's a variety of people that are in the services that we manage. So part of that, one of the primary aspects that we work with is mental health, and from that could stem some issues, and it will be a mixture of people that we're working with, and they might have drug issues and they might have alcohol issues, and we work really closely with all the other providers that work with these people that have got mental health issues, and hopefully we will integrate them into the local community to make them well.
Okay, David, can you hear us now? We seem to be struggling with Councillor Eakin-Smith. Angela, could you just go through the list of speakers, please? Next, please.
Yes, I suggest Councillor Eakin-Smith rings the help desk number if he's continuing to have issues. But the next speaker on the list is Graham Code.
Yeah, over to you, Graham.
Thank you very much. I take it I've got a spot as the neighbouring divisional member. Is that correct, Angela?
Councillor Code, you can speak because you're what you have, but you're also a member of the committee. So.
Yes, I understand that, but I was hoping to get 2 bites during the morning if possible.
Well, the only thing is, if you speak as a divisional member, I don't know whether that precludes you from voting. I think we better ask Ben on that one.
No, I'm a neighbouring divisional member.
Yeah.
So I can't vote.
Yeah, could you clarify that, Ben?
Yeah, morning, Chairman. Yes, you're still voting, Councillor Code. I think what Councillor Harding, I think what Councillor Code is suggesting is that he would speak as the neighbouring member, but he doesn't need to because he's on the committee anyway. So he doesn't need an official slot. I think that's what Angela is saying. And unless he particularly wants to, it won't really help him, will it? He can speak in any event.
Yeah, so Graham, if you could clarify exactly what you want to do.
Well, I would like to speak as the neighbouring member, but you were asking people to keep their comments short and just one go. So I didn't want to think that I would lose my opportunity to speak in general debate. So I would like both opportunities, please.
Yeah. If when we get in a debate, if you propose something, you could speak originally and then wind up as proposer, if that's a way out of it. but up to you.
Whichever. I've got questions for the applicant, and they are as follows. There will be more than one, so I'll ask them one at a time. And I ask, is there just one person present supervising the premises at any given time?
No, there's a whole team that work in the west of Cornwall, so there will be a rota provided, and there could be one or two people, but I've got a whole team that cover the west of Cornwall, so there will be a rota, and more than likely there will be two people on shift at the same time during the evening, where there will be one person on site, but there's also CCTV and an on-call management team.
So there is one, possibly two people on the premises at any given time. That's good, thank you.
Members of staff, and quite often there might be more than that.
Okay, right. Do they have any authority on how the occupants act and behave outside the premises?
We have in place, there's a tenancy agreement or a license agreement that our clients have to abide by, and if they don't abide by some of those license agreements, we've got policies and procedures that we would follow to ensure that if there was any antisocial behaviour, that we would work with them, or we would have to use our legal team, etc., to follow any kind of proceedings.
Right, but there's nothing to stop the people who you plan to have living here leaving the premises and going where they want, doing what they want.
No, they're part of the community, and if they wish to go out for a walk, or if they wish to go shopping, or they wish to go meet their friends, we would encourage any well-being to make their health and well-being part of that community, be part of a Hale community.
All right, thank you. You said earlier that it will mostly be people with mental health issues, which may involve histories of substance abuse. How confident are you that people with mental health issues and substance abuse are likely to be safe and not harmful wandering around the community of Hale?
I think I can probably say that actually 1 in 4 of us have a mental health issue, and that could stem from anything from anxiety to depression, etc. But we work very closely with our clients and with other providers to ensure we put a wraparound, person-centred support plan to try and support people to work with their issues and to become well. And that's a whole part of the work that Home Group do to make people move on from the properties that we work with, and to actually sustain the tenancy and be part of the community and move on to independent accommodation from our services.
Okay, thank you. Just to wind up then, so you've got no control over what the tenants do when they're outside, even though they may have dependency issues and mental illness. That then is down to the police and or the community.
Just to confirm that we would work closely with, if there were issues, we would be saying and there was any issues that came with the community, we would ask for an open communication with Home Group, and we would like to set up a communication group with our staff team to make sure that if there were any issues, we can work with them.
Yeah, okay, then so there's you couldn't actually do anything before something happens or when something happens.
It depends what you're kind of alluding to. I think people with mental health issues, it depends. You know, we would work with people, and if there was an issue, we would, part of somebody's support plan, we put risk assessments in place, etc. And if there were concerns, we would work with our legal department. We would work closely with Devon and Cornwall Police and any other support provider that's a wraparound for those customers.
Thank you. You can come back later, Graham. Right. As David, can you hear us still?
Can you hear me now, Chairman?
Yeah, we can now, David. Yeah. Have you got any further speakers?
I, for some reason, couldn't get my voice heard.
No.
Right. The next speaker, Sue Nicholas.
Yeah. All right. Over to you, Sue.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got a few questions really about it. In your introduction, you said that you catered for people with disabilities and mental health. Has the home, or is the home going to be fitted with tracking systems for those that have a disability? And also, there's been a number of issues about, obviously, the substance abuse. You can take mental health patients who do not have substance abuse. So how would you quantify that? That's one question. And the other question, well, a couple of questions really, is you say that you have a team on call for the whole of West Cornwall. So how many properties do you have in West Cornwall that team will have to visit, especially in an evening and at night? And also, if there are people in the home, what qualifications do they have? Do they have RMNs on board? I think there's a number of questions about how many, and also what security you have in place.
Okay, no problem. If I start around the evening where you're saying about on-call, so we have a national on-call system that links into a manager if there are issues, but there will be somebody there 24 hours. And during the night, there will be a concierge on site. So any issues that come up, they will be able to deal with it at the time. And if there was, say, a major incident, whether that was a flood, fire or an incident, they would be able to contact a staff team. And then we have a responders list that would be able, local people that would be able to get out to that service to support whatever the incident was.
What qualifications would your concierge have, and how would he have any control over the residents and the behaviour in that property?
The concierge, we put our own training package in, and we work with them to make sure they're trained. So they're there for the security of the property. So we've got people within our staff teams that are trained. So we work with support, etc. And we've got a clear training package that we work with around mental health, anything to do with the support plan of that person. But the concierge, we put our own internal training in for them.
And you said that you have a national on-call system. How soon can somebody, how soon can one of your, can they
what would
respond to that?
happen is that if there was an issue, the concierge would call the on-call number, and they would get to one of the managers who would call one of our responders to be able to get out to on site if required.
Right, I'm not very.
I think it depends what your because if there is a real issue, emergency services would be called. That's kind of the main thing for our on-call procedures, and then we.
So you've got nobody on site then who has a caring role for these residents?
Yes, our support staff are trained and they work with the people during the day, but during the evening there's the concierge that they're there for the health and safety and security of the property, and if there is an issue they would call a member of staff or other agencies, like you would if you were in the community. It might be the out of hours team for mental health team, for example. So just using those agencies that you would if you were in the community. But if there was a major incident of any kind, we would be able to get a responder from one of my team to attend the property.
Right, okay. Thank you very much.
Right, David, have you got any further questions?
Yes, we have John Hurd, Chairman.
Yeah, over to you, John.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Well, I can hear you.
There we go. Right. Very simple question. Obviously, you keep records of in other properties like this about the number of incidents you have. Could you give me some idea of how many incidents you have on a weekly or monthly basis? Simple question.
We do keep records. Off the top of my head, I haven't got them to hand, but all I can say is that if there are incidents, you mean when we've called the on-call, is that what you mean? And had to get a responder out?
No, I'm asking when you get an evening, night, if you get an incident, whether you call a responder, whether you call the police. I just want to know the number of incidents.
I'd have to go back to our records to check that completely, but off the top of my head, for Cornwall, I think the main responders we've had is to do with fire alarms that have gone off. So there's nothing that's been needed to have a responder to go out, as far as I'm aware, recently.
Right. Thank you. Have we got any further speakers, David?
Yes, John Bastin, Chairman.
Yeah, Councillor Bastin.
Right. Oops, sorry. Thank you, Chair. Just perhaps a little bit controversially, but where do these residents come from? Can I ask, please?
The residents for this service will come from West Cornwall. The only time that we might take somebody that isn't from West Cornwall is there's been maybe somebody that was fleeing domestic violence, for example. But there's a real need in West Cornwall compared to the other areas of the county, because at the moment there's only 7 units in West Cornwall, which we provide in Penzance currently. Other areas, for example, in Mid Cornwall, there's 50 units. In what was the old Restorable area, another 50 units, and currently in the west of Cornwall, there's only 7 units. So it really shows there's a need for it in the region for the people of West Cornwall.
Right, thanks very much.
Well, thank you. David, have you got any further questions?
Yes, Councillor Linda Taylor, Chairman.
Yeah. Right, Councillor Taylor. Hi, Linda.
Thank you. There has been a concern raised about the police presence within Cambon and Hale and the surrounding areas. I wonder what you would say to residents, knowing that due to the complex issues that these residents will have and do have, the pressure that they are going to obviously be putting on our stretched police resources. I would look forward to a comment on that one, please.
Yes, that's fine. We've worked closely with Devon and Cornwall around the consultation with this, and welcome the comments from Chief Inspector Ian Thompson regarding that they feel that they can deal with this and work alongside us as they do in all our other services. And I like to think that we support Devon and Cornwall Police as well. So we work with people in the community and hope that the support team that I've got across several services actually take some of that pressure off the police as well, because we're putting input and support packages into our customers before any kind of perhaps antisocial behaviour, etc., would happen.
Right, thank you. David, have you got any further members that have indicated they want to ask a question?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Sue Nicholas.
Yeah, Sue, I think I gave you a pretty good thrash.
Yeah, no, this is for clarification, Chair.
Right, just one question, and very briefly.
Yeah, the 7 units in Penzance, are those residents, is that facilities for people with learning disabilities or for substance abuse and mental health issues?
That's for complex needs mental health.
Right, thank you. David, is that the end of the questions?
No other questions, Chairman.
Right, I think you'll be glad to hear that, Anita. Thank you very much for attending.
Yes, thank you, Chairman.
Answering all the questions. It's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Problem.
Right, Graham, did you wish to speak as the adjoining member at this stage?
Yes, a little bit.
Yeah, if you come in before we go to officers' questions then.
Right. The concerns very eloquently expressed by Councillor John Pollard represent the concerns of Hailtown Council, and the very well-made points from Councillor Anne-Marie Rantz also represent the views of Hailtown Council on behalf of Hale. The answers given by the applicant don't seem to provide any safety or security from the point of view of tenants of this property wandering around the town and whatever their behaviour may be. This is far enough away from the holiday camps. Well, there's one just a quarter of a mile up the road, must be one of the biggest ones in Cornwall. And this route down past Tamarisk is used by many people who wish to access the town on foot or to go to Lidl's, which As I look at it, it's what, perhaps 120 yards away from the proposed premises, as well known for its cheap supply of alcohol, which is going to have to be an awful temptation for someone with substance abuse history. Furthermore, the fairly large housing estate known as Luggins Estate is just up the road, just before the big, enormous caravan site. And all the children from there walk past Tamarisk twice a day to access the local schools. I can remember some years back when this property had a similar use for a while. The tenants took nice chairs out on the grass bit in front of it, looking at the junction, and would sit out there swigging alcohol and goodness knows what else they were doing. But it was unsightly and unpopular. But it was something that the local people were unable to do anything about. And that's one of the things that worries me now. Now, the applicant has stated that they've got a lot of properties, or units as she calls them, up in the Restormal area, and people who follow problems that St Austell is having in its town centre, with people who have got mental illness issues and substance abuse issues, begging, drinking, taking drugs and fighting in the town centre to such an extent that it's a real problem for the police and for the local council. Also down at Penzance, we're aware that Penzance has long had a problem with people sleeping in doorways and down in the local parks and so forth. I've got some advantages in this, or the way I look at this, in that I've worked in what used to be called a mental hospital years ago, and familiar with a lot of the problems that could be handled in there, but it was a secure unit, so there wasn't much of a risk to people in the community. I've also done 33 years in the police service. A lot of that those times I've had dealings
still going, Andre, on their conversation
with a lot of issues. So I know how risky and dangerous that could be. It is scary if you've got someone with mental health issues who is, and you're on your own and you're trying to deal with them because of the unpredictable nature of these people's complex needs. So I would definitely like to say that Hale Police used to be, when I was there, my last post into Hale as a police officer, there were between 12 and 14 officers. That was what was considered necessary to give adequate safe cover for the town. We're now down to one officer who might be a community support officer, and it's definitely not enough under normal circumstances. And add the potential for problems for this would be a bad thing. I'm very much against it, I'm afraid. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Right, thank you. Right, so with that, we go on to questions of the officers. Has any of the committee members got a question of the officers? Yeah, is it Councillor Mike Thomas?
Thank you, Chair. A question to Adam about the point made about advertising the property. Could you comment on that, whether that is applicable in that case?
Sorry, Councillor Thomas, do you mean advertising the property in terms of before the application went in terms of communicating with the local community?
Yes.
I mean, that was set out in the applicant's submission. We have no information about how that was undertaken or what the responses were. We've just been informed that I think a leaflet was sent around to local residents explaining the proposed development and how it may function, etc. But we have no further knowledge other than that.
Right. But is there a requirement for that property to be advertised as a going concern, like in a town centre property has that requirement before it can be converted to residential?
Well, at the moment, it's lawful use as a residential dwelling. So obviously, they're proposing they feel that in accordance with planning policy and other considerations, it's a suitable location for the proposed development. There's no reason for the residential property to be marketed, you know, as a going concern, just to make sure there's no interest in it. It's slightly different to an existing commercial property in that respect.
Right. Okay, thank you very much.
Chairman,
David, have you got any further questions?
Chairman, it's Mark. Just on one point while Adam's there, could you just confirm, Adam, that we've done the correct notifications for the processing of the application?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, we have. I can quickly pull up the application form. Is that what you mean, Mark?
No. The neighbour publicity in terms of neighbour notification and site notice.
Yeah, I can confirm this. I confirm site notice wasn't required for this application in accordance with the procedure order, but I can confirm that that all of the immediately adjoining neighbours were consulted. Those that joined the red line, and I've got a list of them here in front of me.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. Yeah, David, have you got any other questions?
Yes, Councillor Sue Nicholas, Jim.
Yeah, Sue.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was just wondering, and I'm not sure whether they'd need this anyway, given that they've put in a plan. Is there any application to put any tracking systems in, because you'd need to reinforce floors and ceilings and various things?
I cannot. That's left to any building reg requirements. That's not required for the plan application.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah. David, are there any further questions?
Yes, Councillor Helen Hawkins, Jim.
Yeah, Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Chair. Given that we've been told there's a need for this service in West Cornwall, and given that the reduction of police officers is across Cornwall, can that be used here as an issue?
Mark.
We cannot refuse it on those grounds under the planning decision.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. David, were there any further questions?
None that I can see, Chairman.
No. Right. If that's the case, we'll move into committee and open it up to members to make any further comments and hopefully make a recommendation. So over to you, members. Have we got any requests for speakers, David?
Yep, we have Councillor Nicholas, Chair.
Yeah, right. So.
Thank you. I'll start everybody off. Yeah, I have concerns about how the security and the help for the residents is going to be established. And interestingly, if you read the news from yesterday, there were 3 people arrested for dealing with heroin in Hale. I can understand, and I perfectly understand, if it was going to be for someone with learning disabilities, that kind of complex needs, or someone who has a mental health issue. But I think there is a great deal of difference between those kind of residents who definitely would be supported and those that are suffering from mental health and substance and alcohol abuse. And as already been pointed out by Councillor Code, Lidl's is literally just across the road. I also support them that actually there is a very large number of holiday areas just up the road from this. So I don't understand why someone thinks that there aren't. So I have great reservations about this.
Thank you. David, have we got any further speakers?
Councillor Pascoe, Chair.
Yeah, over to you, Lionel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, this does concern me quite a bit, to be quite honest with you. The location of this property. Listening to the arguments here today, we seem to be talking about 2 different properties, in my opinion. The local people have said about the supermarket, the holiday villages, and the schools, which are going to walk straight past this place. And as we all know, we're in lockdown and hopefully coming out of it soon. And we're going to get more and more people here visiting. And Hale has got a lot of restaurants, eating houses, pubs, and people that are in these holiday villages and staying in holiday accommodation around Hale will be walking. And like I said, I find it, at the moment, I'm finding it very difficult to support this application. So I'll leave it there for a minute.
All right, thank you. David, you got any further speakers?
Not at the moment, Chairman, no. Ah, yes, so we now have 2. We have Councillor Graham Code.
Right, over to you, Graham.
Yes, thank you. As I hinted to earlier on, I'm quite familiar with the policing situation in Hale. I've been stationed in Hale as a police officer on 2 separate occasions. I've also maintained friendly relationships with some of the officers currently at Hale. And when this came before Hailtown Council first, it's been mentioned that 3 of the officers who regularly police Hale and are intimately familiar with what goes on and how it can be dealt with, all objected or suggested that we object most strongly to this, really on the point of view that they did not have the resources to deal with incidents that would almost certainly stem from this proposal. I agree with them, and we trust them. Hailtown Council trusts them. We know our police officers. They do the best, despite the fact that police cover in Hale has gone from about 14 officers down to 1 at a time. This is because of savage cuts to police funding, which is national, and the police officers from smaller towns have been sucked away to the larger towns to provide some idea of cover. The Chief Inspector, I forget the name, was it Thompson or Thomas or whatever, I think based at Falmouth, for what I can remember, does not have the intimate knowledge of trying to police Hale that the local officers have. As is a disciplined service, the local officers were required to withdraw their opposition to this. And the nice strategic, we're happy with everything submission from the Chief Inspector is a standard sort of force policy. No one ever likes to admit that they can't provide sufficient cover. Another thing that's not been pointed at too much, one of the first things, people from Tamarisk heading towards Hale, one of the first things they come across is the recreation ground and children's play park, which is a very, very familiar place for people to sit around. And that is a worry for me. But I would object to this on the grounds not just of a lack of police officers, but as to the risk to public safety through the nature of people that could be staying at Tamarisk, bearing in mind the lack of police cover. The lady from Home Choice or whatever it was called, I said, oh, if they get a problem, they'll call emergency services. Well, I don't think the fire brigade will be able to do much. And a lot of horrible stuff can happen to people while you wait for a car to come from Cambon or more usually Penzance. You can be talking about 10 minutes, which I can guarantee is a long time when you're fighting on the floor with a person with severe mental illness. I propose that this application be refused on the grounds of risks to public safety, primarily for all the reasons that people have stated already, including myself. I don't think it's safe. I think it's dangerous for police officers, dangerous for the residents of Tamarisk themselves, and potentially dangerous for people in the area of Hale. So I propose that it is refused. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that?
Councillor Kaczmarek has indicated he wishes to speak, Chair.
Yeah. So are you seconding that, Mark, or do you just want to speak?
I'm happy to second it. And if I can speak on this, yes, this facility is needed, but it's a question: is this the right place? I don't think it's the right place. I don't think the residents down there believe it's in the right place, nor does the local members. These places do attract other people who will come into the area seeking this type of care and support. When they had something similar right in the middle of Cambon had no end of problems. They've now moved the facility now out right next to South Crofty, where they have where they deal with them, and they're away from the main concentration and main residential areas of the Cambon Red Roof area. So they can be treated a lot better. So I think this is a wrong location. I think the principle is fine, but no, I fully support Councillor Code. And looking at the police response, it looks like a generic paragraph that's been sent out by a senior police officer. It doesn't reflect any of the views of the local PCSOs or neighbourhood beat managers at all, which I find very disappointing. So now very happy to support Councillor Code's recommendation for refusal.
Right, thank you. With that, I'll bring in Mr. Broomhead. Having heard what members have said, it's been a very long debate, Mr. Broomhead. What would be your opinion? Would be the grounds that we would go forward on for the refusal?
Yeah, I mean the perceived crime could be is material consider, but I wouldn't give a lot of weight to that. Obviously, as I understand, Councillor Code and the Councillor Kushmarek, the proposer and seconder, said that the proposal would lead to antisocial behaviour, which would in turn give rise to noise associated to disturbances incompatible with its surroundings and likely to harm the neighbours. Is that the gist of it?
Councillor Code,
I can give you a...
Yeah.
Yes, I would say that is an issue about the actual premises itself, but we wonder, can any credence be given to the perceived problems that could occur in the greater area?
I would tend to not put that in. I mean, you can say that the proposal would lead to it is considered the proposal would lead to antisocial behaviours. That's what you're saying, in a predominantly residential area with dwellings bordering the site.
Sorry, Mark. I'm definitely saying that. I was also saying other stuff, and it's a bit disappointing if we can't consider any of the other which raised.
Yeah, the other problem is when you go to an appeal, that the police aren't going to support you because we've got it clear in our report that the police revise their comments.
Wow.
And I mean, whatever reason we do, that doesn't stop third parties from raising that with the inspector if it gets refused as a separate issue.
Is there anything, Mark, we could bring in on talking about the character of the area, conflict with that?
Well, this is what you may. I've been listening to your debate. This is one suggestion, and obviously you correct me, Councillor Code and Councillor Kushmarek. The proposed amendment is situated in a predominantly residential area with dwellings bordering the site to several aspects. With that in mind, coupled with a high likely volume of comings and goings associated with the development, which could in turn give rise to noise and associated disturbances, the proposal is considered to be incompatible with its surroundings and likely to harm the residential amenities of neighbouring properties. The proposal is therefore considered to be inappropriate for its location, taking into account the likely effects on the living conditions of neighbours, in conflict with 1, 2, 12 and 16 of the local plan, and paragraphs 8, 127, 170 and 180 of the National Planning Policy Framework.
Right, Mr. Broomhead, you've taken the words right out of my mouth. That'll do fine, thank you.
Yeah, you willing to second that, Mark?
Very happy to second that, Chairman.
Yeah. Right, David, do we have any further speakers, or does anybody want to put a contrary view?
Yeah. So, Councillor Thomas, Mike Thomas, Chairman.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairs. Is it possible, Mark, or would it be appropriate to also include reference to tourism, because there's no reference to tourism within that? Because that has come up in the debate, and the previous use as a bed and breakfast obviously is well situated as on the entrance to the town, and that is a very useful amenity for tourism. Would that have any possibilities, do you think?
I would tend to steer away from that. I appreciate we did that at Alexander Road in Penzance, but that road has got a number of guest houses, etc., and that was in close proximity. The problem with this one is that the B&B has never had a planning permission, so from our records, the existing use in planning terms is a dwelling and not a loss of a B&B. And in terms of the people walking from the nearby holiday there, obviously it's difficult to substantiate that, so I would tend to not include that.
Okay, but it does lead to quite substantial numbers of tourist areas, campsites and the like. That's all I just wondered. You can't reference that in the future, but if it went to appeal, you wouldn't be able to reference tourism. That's all I'm saying there could be some reference to tourism. So if it did go to appeal, you could at least unpack it at that point. That's all I'm asking.
What I would suggest is that obviously we as a council have to defend our reason.
Yeah.
And obviously any element that we can't defend puts us at risk of costs. I mean, Hailtown Council can actually attack that or part of that tourism aspect in their correspondence with the inspector, so he will still have to take that into account. So I'm only advising the council on not putting any cost risks in terms of bringing in extra elements. I appreciate what you say.
Yeah.
I respect what you say, but
no,
in this particular position, I think that's going to be hard to justify.
Yeah, I felt I had to raise it though. Thank you very much for that answer.
Thank you. David, are there any further speakers?
No, Chairman.
Right. I'll then put that to the vote. The vote will be for refusal, which is contrary to the recommendation in the agenda. And it's on the grounds that have been read out by Mr. Broomhead, and it's been proposed by Councillor Code and seconded by Councillor Kaczmarek. So the vote will be by roll call. So over to you, Angela.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Bastin.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
For.
Councillor Code.
For.
Councillor Hawkins.
Against.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Harding.
For.
Councillor Hurd.
For.
Kaczmarek.
For.
Councillor Martin.
For.
Nicholas.
For.
Councillor Pascoe.
For.
Simmons. Councillor Simmons, you're on mute at the moment. I'll just move on to Councillor John Thomas.
For.
Councillor Mike Thomas.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Simmons, are you there? Councillor Simmons. Chairman, I think Councillor Simmons must be away from his computer at the moment, but we do have an overwhelming result with this one. I'll just count the votes quickly. We have the refusal has been carried with 12 votes in favour and 1 against.
Right, thank you. We did say that we were going to have a 10-minute comfort break at 11:30, but by my watch it's 11:45. So we'll take a 10-minute break and reconvene at 5 to 12, if that's okay with everybody. If we could be back prompt, it would be appreciated.
Chairman, can I remind members that the live stream will continue, so please mute their microphones and the cameras off. Thank you.
That was going to be my next comment. So if you could switch the microphones off.
12 o'clock would be better, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we reconvene at 12 then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Angela, if you could confirm if everybody's back, please.
I can do. I think we still have another couple of minutes, but I'll carry out a roll call.
Yeah, I was just checking when everybody's back, so I was anxious to start at 12.
Okay, Councillor Bastin, are you there?
Yes, Angela, I'm still here.
Great. Councillor Taylor?
Yes, here.
Councillor Code? Councillor Code? I'll move on a minute. Councillor Hawkins?
Here.
Councillor Eakin-Smith?
Present.
And obviously here, Councillor Harding. Councillor Hurd?
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Kaczmarek?
Still here.
Councillor Martin?
Yeah, present, correct.
Councillor Nicholas?
Still here.
Pascoe?
Here.
Councillor Simmons?
Yes, here.
John Thomas? Councillor Mike Thomas?
Yes, miss.
Okay. Councillor Code? No, we're still missing Councillor Code. Is Councillor John Thomas there? No, it's two councillors that we're waiting for, Chairman.
Yes, not quite 12 yet.
Yeah, apparently Ben is having technical issues and can't get back into the meeting, so
There's Councillor Code.
another legal representative has been asked to attend, Vanessa Alderod, but I can't see that she's in the meeting yet.
No. Graham's, you there, Graham?
Yes, I'm here. I can put X in the box, hand up, or take the mickey out of the chairman, whichever you want.
Oh, no, that's fine. We're just doing a roll call. Is Councillor John Thomas with us yet? No, it's just him that we're waiting for now. I see that it is 12 o'clock now. Can I just check? Councillor Thomas, are you back yet? John Thomas?
Do you want me to telephone him to make sure that he's able to come back into the meeting?
Yes, if you don't mind, Rowena.
Councillor Thomas is back into the meeting now.
Right, thank you, Rowena. Right, here we go. Next item on the agenda is 4.3. That's PA 18/08586 Cambon and Redruth Hale Methodist Circuit, the old nursery, Higher Pempons Road. And I think, Diane, you're taking us through that one?
Yes, I am, Chairman.
Yeah. Yeah, are you going to share your screen with us? Yeah, we can see that. So start whenever you're happy, Diane.
Okay, so you can see the screen okay, yeah?
Yes, that's fine. Yeah, we can hear you and we can see the screen.
Thank you. So this application is a full application for the erection of 2 dwellings and formation of new access at the old nurseries, Higher Pempons Road. Members are advised that 8 additional objections have been received since the publication of the committee report. The objections reiterate previously expressed concerns about the development of the former allotments. Pempons Community Interest Company have applied for the site to be registered as an asset of community value, which the council has accepted. Okay, so the key issues as set out on the screen refer to the principle of development, loss of green space / open space, flood risk and highway safety. Turning to the location plan. The location plan shows the application site and pen ponds in its wider setting. The settlement of Barippa lies to the south and Cambon is located to the northeast of pen ponds. So the site plan. The site plan shows the site outlined in red. Higher Pen Ponds Road is adjacent to the northeast of the site, with Mill Road to the northwest. Turning to the aerial photograph, again it shows the site outlined in red within its context of Pen Ponds. This is the existing site plan. So Higher Pen Ponds Road runs along the right-hand side of the screen, and Mill Road runs along the top of the screen. As we can see, the site is defined by Cornish hedges, which provide tree-lined boundaries along the adjoining highway. This is the proposed site plan. So access would be formed from Higher Pen Ponds Road, just here, and the 2 dwellings would be positioned adjacent to the northwest side of the boundary. It is also proposed to provide a provision of open space, approximately 644 square metres, to the southwest of the 2 dwellings, just there. Turning to the proposed layout, this is a zoomed in image. It shows the scheme as proposed. As we can see, each dwelling would have a garage with parking to the front, and new hedges are also proposed to compensate against the loss due to the new access point, and these are shown in the hatched areas running along the driveway. So turning to the elevations, this is plot 1. So we can see that it's a 2-storey dwelling with an integral garage, and the external materials are a combination of painted render with natural slate hanging. Again, just turning to the floor plans, we can see that the integral garage on the ground floor and the 4 bedrooms on the first floor. This elevation show is of plot 2, and it's also of a 2-storey design with an external materials being a mixture of painted render and natural stone. And again, plot 2 would be 4 bedrooms with an integral garage. Turning to the photographs, so the application site is at the centre of the screen with the junction between Higher Pen Ponds Road on the left-hand side and Mill Road to the right-hand side. This is the application site with the existing access. Higher Pen Ponds Road is just to the left, with the new access proposed along here. This is looking into the site, looking southwest. Mill Road is beyond the trees on the right, and as you can see, the site has been cleared. These photos were taken last week. This is again another photo taken from the existing site entrance, looking south. High Pen Ponds Road is just to the left of the screen. So the site is currently vacant, but was previously used as allotments, and this is all set out in the report. The site is in private ownership and was not identified as open space in the council's previous open space assessment, and there's no neighbourhood plan in place protecting the site. This photograph is taken from Higher Pen Ponds Road and it's looking north. The new access point is just beyond the telephone box. And this final photograph is taken from Mill Road, looking back towards the site in a northeasterly direction. What I would also add is that the site has been included in the council's list of assets of community value, subject to any appeal, as of the 21st of January 2021. The weight to be given to the asset of community value status is discussed in paragraphs 58 to 62 of the report. While some weight is afforded to the listing, it is not considered in this particular case to be determinative. So turning to the balance of considerations, the proposal would deliver 2 dwellings and some provision of open space to the local area. The development would alter the character of the green space within the village, but the change in character is not considered to be so harmful to warrant refusal when balanced against additional homes and the provision of open space. The local lead flood authority and highway officer are both satisfied with the proposal in respect of the drainage / flood risk and highway safety respectively. As such, the recommendation is conditional approval as set out.
Right, thank you. We have got speakers on this one. The first one is Dr. Carol Richards. Dr. Richards, can you hear me?
Chairman, if Dr. Richards could press *6 to unmute her telephone.
All right. Could you hear that, Dr. Richards?
There was some background noise, so yes, if Dr. Richards can press *6 to unmute her phone.
Could you hear that, Dr. Richards?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Good afternoon now, and welcome to the committee meeting. It will be the usual format. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. We'll give you a prompt when it's 30 seconds to go, and your time will start when you start speaking. So over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair and Councillors. I'm speaking on behalf of Penponds Community Interest Company. Penponds is almost unique as a village in West Cornwall, as there is no public space. There is no seat, no playing field, no village hall, and no place to meet. As a CIC, we would like to buy the nursery to use for the community. Until 2017, the land was used to provide allotments for local residents until growers were evicted by the landowner. The nursery has recently been granted status of an asset of community value. Although this is not considered to be determinative, the listing demonstrates the wishes of the 51 residents who signed the application. Within a mile of this proposed development, there are currently 114 houses being constructed, including affordable. I would like to draw your attention to the objections raised in connection with this unnecessary development. The divisional member wishes to oppose the application as it does not comply with policies within the local plan or the NPFF regarding the loss of provision of community facilities. Cambon Town Council recommend refusal, citing CLP 26.2, CLP 4 and NPPF 77. The local lead flood authority objects on the basis of flooding. The public space team objects on the basis of local plan policies 13.2 and 16.5 and national policy framework paragraph 97. They have concerns that the proposed small public area will not be adequately sustained in the long term. I quote, "An open space delivery plan must be submitted prior to commencement for approval." Objections were submitted by local residents, but their issues of loss of amenity, flooding and access have not been sufficiently resolved. Local Plan Policy 25 states that the loss of green infrastructure assets resulting from a proposed development should be replaced by equivalent in a suitable location. Cambon Town Council received a large number of formal applications for allotments from Penponds residents, but there are no alternative allotment facilities available in the Cambon area. In conclusion, we would urge you to reject this latest planning application on the basis of Cornwall Local Plan Policies 13.2 and 16.5, the loss of community facilities and inadequate access to public open space. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Richards. If you could just wait, I'll just check if any of the members have got a question for you. Are there any questions, David?
No, Chairman.
No. Right. Thank you very much for attending the meeting this afternoon, Dr. Richards. Thank you once again. With that, we go on to the next speaker is Councillor Zoe Fox of Cambon Town Council. Can you hear me, Councillor Fox?
Again, Chairman, if she could press *6 to unmute, please.
Yeah. Did you hear that, Councillor Fox?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Councillor Fox.
Hello.
Yeah, thank you for attending the meeting.
Thank you for hearing me,
hello, sorry, you have 3 minutes to speak, and we'll remind you when it's 30 seconds to go, and your time will start from when you start speaking. So whenever you're ready, Councillor Fox.
Thank you very much. I'll start now. The piece of land that is subject to the application in front of you has a long history as an important open space within the village. It is in a prominent position and clearly valued by local people who have had it registered as an asset of community value. The site came into the possession of the Methodist Church by subscription of local people, initially to provide a place of worship and to provide a focus for village life and community activity at that time. Located centrally in the village, it has continued to retain community use and interest since then. In a village with few other facilities and no other public open space, the application site has served as a focus for community use and is a defining feature of the village. Importantly, there can be little doubt that these proposals would substantially impact the character of the village.
In your information packs, you can see that this was a clear reason to refuse planning permission to date. There are ample plans to build housing nearby in an arguably more sustainable location on the edge of Cambon. There is therefore no overarching need for this development and no public benefit to outweigh the damage this development would cause. The expansion of Cambon makes it even more important to retain the historic village character and identity of Pen Ponds. The local plan, Policy 3, states planners should consider significance or importance that large gaps in frontage can make to the setting of settlements and ensure that these would not be diminished. We have heard that the application to register it as an asset of community value was able to show sufficient community use over time to gain that designation, and that this may also be considered a material consideration for planning purposes. Although some public open space is proposed to be retained in these plans, which recognises that this has been a necessary purpose of this site, however, the small area left for this purpose is not well considered with no proper management plan. The allotted area is clearly subservient to the development and wholly inadequate to the setting. There is also a quote from a planning inspector in your pack suggesting that appropriate development might not conflict with the designation of an asset of community value. That is not the case here. The judgment quoted refers to a public house in an urban location. It is taken out of context and simply doesn't translate. Perhaps a more relevant and local appeal finding at Troon gave considerable weight to local reports of surface water flooding issues in the vicinity of a proposed development site. I hope you're all aware of the flooding issues and problematic nature of the site in question today. Furthermore, retention of green spaces are key in contributing to local flood prevention and management strategies.
30 seconds left.
The planning inspector in that appeal said that strategic flood risk assessment for the area should be balanced by more recent information indicating that there may be flooding issues now or in the future. These reasons were indicated in the reasons to refuse the appeal at June. So to conclude, I believe there are enough planning reasons on balance to refuse this application. Please do so there can be a proper review and more appropriate plan for this important village site. In proposing to refuse this application, Cambon Town Council quoted
3 minutes, Chairman.
Yeah. Right, thank you, Councillor.
I'm sure many more apply. Thanks. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, could you just wait just a moment, just in case any members got a question for you?
Yep.
Are there any, David?
Yeah, Councillor Baston, Chairman.
Yeah, all right. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Chair. I may have missed this, but can you tell me who owns it at the moment?
It's still the Methodist Circuit, in fact, who never came through on their promise of a place of worship and a community centre for the village. That was why it was purchased by subscription from local people.
And how long ago was that? Sorry.
I wish you had asked Dr. Carroll that. I'm terrible with dates and times, but it is a considerable time ago. However, clearly they haven't put it to any other use except community use since that time.
Right, thanks very much.
Thank you. Were there any other questions, David?
No, Chairman.
No. Right. Thank you very much, Councillor Fox, for attending the meeting this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll continue to watch online. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. Right. Next speaker is Mr. Kevin Mosley. Mr. Mosley, can you hear me?
If Mr. Mosley could press *6 to unmute his telephone, please.
Did you hear that, Mr. Mosley?
Vice Chairman, yes, I've just pressed *6, thank you.
Yeah, I think you're quite well versed with the way we work, but just to remind you, you have 3 minutes. We'll prompt you at 30 seconds and your time will start when you start speaking. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Now, this planning application was submitted in September 2018, following pre-application advice from the Council, which was that the application was acceptable rounding off development in accord with Cornwall local plan policy. The only issue raised at that time was the loss of a former use of the land as allotments. Following the submission of the formal application, a number of objections were raised by members of the public, mainly relating to highways, flooding, and provision of allotments. In regard to highways issues, members will note that the highways officer raises no objections to the development. Neighbours have pointed out that in the past there have been some flooding problems in Pen Ponds. However, Those problems have been nothing to do with houses having been built on the application site. A detailed flood risk assessment has been undertaken, and the local lead flood authority is satisfied with the proposed drainage arrangements, and there will not be any increased risk of flooding as a result of the development. The main concern that has been expressed has been about the loss of the former allotment use of the site. I have to be very clear and emphasise for the committee that the application site is privately owned land. The former use as allotments ceased nearly 5 years ago, and whatever the decision that is made on this application, it will not commence again. Pen Ponds is surrounded by agricultural land that could be used as allotments without the need for any formal planning permission. And as pointed out by the Public Open Space Officer, it is the duty of the town and parish councils to provide allotments if there is a demand. If such a demand had been shown in the last 5 minutes and residents had asked for this duty to be carried out, that provision could be made. It is not the duty of the Methodist Church to provide allotments, it is the duty of the town and parish councils. There has been reference made to the site being listed as an asset of community
30
value.
seconds left.
As officers have pointed out, and as there is case law to point out, this is not a designation which is designed to prevent otherwise acceptable development. Your professional officers have prepared a very thorough report that sets out that the proposal accords with the national and local plan policies. There is no reasonable justification at all in any planning terms to refuse permission for the proposed development, and the applicants will be very grateful.
Right, so that's your time, I'm afraid, Mr. Mosley. If you could just wait, just in case there are some questions. Has any member indicated, David? Hello, David, can you hear me?
Sorry, Chairman, I'm muted. Councillor Bastin.
Yeah, right. John, if you've got a question for clarification.
Sure. So thank you, Chair. Could I ask Mr. Mosley, on the drawings that we saw earlier on, it said it was a medium flood risk area. Would you not agree this would escalate with the current climate issues to a higher level?
Thank you, Councillor. No, not at all. Very careful and very detailed works have been undertaken to provide a flood risk assessment that has been done professionally and in consultation with the council's lead flood officer, and it's been very clearly shown on the scheme that there would be no additional flood risk to the village as a result of the proposed development. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. David, have you any other speakers?
Yes, Mike Thomas.
Yeah, over to you, Mike.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Mosley, could you clarify and confirm access to the remaining land? You may have mentioned that, but I didn't pick it up. And whether that land could be used for allotments.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Yes. The access to the actual site itself has been amended during the course of the processing of the application to ensure that it meets the requirements of the Highways Officer. The land that is to be provided as public open space will be provided and maintained in association with the development by a maintenance company, and that will happen in accordance with the detailed condition that is proposed by the planning officers, and the open space in accordance with the permission and that condition, if granted, would ensure that the land is available for public open space purposes.
Thank you for confirming that.
Yeah. Were there any further questions, David?
No, Chairman.
No. Right. Thank you. So with that, we go on to the divisional member, and that's Councillor Hurd. Over to you, John.
Good morning. I'd just like to start on the flooding issues. The surface water flooding issue on this site are well documented. The LFA have objected to this application on 2 occasions, and if you look at the EA surface water mapping shows that problems with this site very clearly. Also, the photographic evidence from local residents over the years reinforces the concerns. Even the applicant's own report from EDS flood assessment of March 2020 states it is predicted that during an extreme surface water flood event, overland flow may pool at the lower point in Higher Pembons Road, situated adjacent to the eastern boundary of the site. Should the highway drainage network, i.e. gullies, etc., become overwhelmed or blocked, then the EA surface water flood map indicates that flood water may flow in a westerly direction across the site towards Mill Road. If you look at the EA map, you will see that it's flood zone 3B. I feel there have been inadequate risk assessment for the continued flood issues that have occurred in Higher Pembons. This will continue to happen, and increased housing will only exacerbate the situation. There have been instances when people have had their cars written off and the threat of water ingress to properties. This application will increase the current flooding risk in the neighbouring properties. Could I just go back to the map in state? History tells us a lot. If you look at the corner of that site, everything was built in about 1850, 1870, except on that patch. Why do you think that is? Because they knew it flooded. Right. Land definition of allotments. When is an allotment not an allotment? I have a copy of an eviction letter sent to a resident from the applicant's solicitors headed allotments on land near Higher Pembons Road. I emailed the solicitor to ask if they were going to comply with policy 4 of the CLP to replace the allotments within the village. I obviously got no reply. The drainage survey carried out by the applicant's surveyor, EDS, states existing usage. The site currently comprises of land used for allotments with associated planted trees, sheds and polytunnels. Pembons Village has no community facilities apart from this piece of land that has historically been used as a market garden and later used for allotments for the local residents, and a large number are still waiting on the waiting list for allotment space. It is important to understand the town centre of Cambon is surrounded by a number of villages from Troon, Beacon, Pengagan, Tuckin Mill, Roskeer, St Mary-of-Dock, Kieland and Baripper. Every single one of those areas has an amenity space and play areas except Pembons. Not only could this proposal dramatically alter the character and the layout of the central focus of a historically important village, but it would remove a central part of the village community recently functioning as allotments for local use. The development will be taking away the final green space that the community can use. Allotments are considered both recreational land and open space by the National Policy Framework and the Cornwall Council Local Plan Policy 12.3 16.5. Although the development site has not previously been recorded as allotments, in assessments that preceded the 2014 open space strategy, it is clear that by 2016 area photograph, the site was used as allotments. The Small Loadings and Allotments Act 1908 imposes a duty on councils to provide allotments for 6 or more people say they want them. This remains in force on town and parish councils to facilitate, and the local planning authority carries some of this obligation. In July 2014, Cornwall Council adopted an open place strategy for larger towns in Cornwall as an interim planning guidance. Following the adoption of the local plan, the work has been refreshed as evidence-based towards a future supplementary planning document. The development site overlaps a boundary of one of these study areas. The relevant standards therefore apply. Open space requirements in the study area being identified for the western area of Cambon, identified deficiencies in parks and amenity space, natural open space, children's play areas and allotments. To conclude,
if you could start to wind up now, John, we've had 5 minutes.
I will. To conclude, the village needs no more houses, but it does need somewhere for the increased number of young children to gather and play. Proposed residential development on this site has been refused in the past, and we can think of nothing that has changed in the arguments relating to this proposal. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Any questions?
David, were there any questions for John?
Yes, Councillor Nicholas, Chairman.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just trying to understand. You were saying this area's allotments, then they weren't kind of like neglected and nobody wanted an allotment. They were given eviction letters?
Yes, that's absolutely right. They were threatened with legal action if they didn't leave the site.
Thank you.
Right. Were there any further questions, David?
No other questions I can see, Chair.
If that, we'll swiftly move on. Has anybody got any questions for the officers?
Councillor Bastin's first, Chair.
Yeah. Over to you, John.
Thanks again, Chair. A question for Diane. Would you agree, it's difficult to, without getting a kind of a cross-section of the site really, that this area could well be a sump for water? In other words, water coming from all the surrounding areas, as Councillor Hurd suggested, that area hasn't been built on. And it would appear to me to be a sump which is actually stopping even worse flooding occurring by letting that water drain in that area. I mean, would you agree with that?
As we previously said, in terms of the flood risk assessment, we have gone back and forth in discussions with the applicant's drainage consultant and our own drainage team, the local lead flood authority, and they queried some of the data and they asked for additional information. So based upon my drainage expert, as in the local authority flood team, I'm satisfied that they're satisfied with the drainage assessment. So they're confident that it's not going to flood elsewhere due to the development based upon what's being proposed in terms of the flood drainage arrangements.
Right, so sorry, I'm really asking, will the actual development flood and what sort of attenuation tanks or whatever are going to be on that area?
So in terms, do you want to go, Mark?
Sorry, go on, carry on, Diane.
I was going to say the application, the drainage consultant has proposed various drainage solutions which are set out in their report, and these have been considered in detail by Jackie Smith's team, the local lead flood authority, who have written that condition. So that's why we have imposed that condition, and it is a pre-commencement condition. But in terms of although it's not shown on the maps as a flood risk area, we were aware of the problems, which is why the local lead flood authority have been involved from the very beginning, and we have gone back and forth with the developer about this to try and be satisfied, and we are satisfied, as I said in the report, that in terms of the flooding, that we're satisfied that it accords with the relevant flood policies and guidance.
Right, thanks, Diane.
Right, David, are there any further questions?
Yeah, the next one is Councillor Kaczmarek.
Yeah, Mark, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Diane. Two things really. If this area is prone to flooding, then why are people wanting it for allotments? You're going to grow things in the flooded area unless it's rice. So, that's the one question. The other question is, do you think this development, if it happens, will actually alleviate any flooding issues there by putting in better drainage?
Mark?
Okay, yeah, I appreciate what you're saying on the allotment situation. Obviously, it has been used as allotments to the satisfaction of a lot of the local residents. I think the issue of the drainage, I think we have better controls by imposing the recommended condition that we would have than the current situation. And don't forget, the lead flood authority are actually supportive of the application or raise no objections subject to that condition, which will then be dealt with as a pre-commencement. So I don't see that would cause any additional issues than what's there at the moment.
Okay, thank you. And can I also ask, and do we know if this site has ever come up for sale? So the town council or parish council could actually buy it for allotments?
I don't think that's actually really relevant to the decision. I mean, it has, as we've said, it's been put down as a ACV, which is a listing, which is to afford the community an opportunity to purchase the land. However, this should not be used to prevent acceptable development as a planning decision, and obviously that's between the relevant parties.
All right, thank you. David, are there any further questions?
Yes, Councillor Nicholas, Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Nicholas.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, that's just clarified a bit that I was trying to work out exactly whether this had been listed as an ACV. If it's been listed as an ACV, on page 51, it does say that a community interest group could be offered it. And it says that it has to stay on the list for 5 years. So if the owner wishes to dispose of the listed asset, a moratorium must be observed to allow a competitive bid from a community interest group. So as far as I can see, if the ACV is in place, why have we got this application?
All right.
Well, obviously the application was put in before the ACV listing. I think we shouldn't get confused with what that actually means. The primary purpose of an ACV listing is to afford the community an opportunity to purchase the land, but it shouldn't prevent otherwise acceptable development. So obviously the sale price will actually obviously depend on the planning use of that land. So obviously this may well be part of the negotiations, or will be part of the negotiations when the decisions are made. But we shouldn't get confused too much with ACVs. They are material considerations, but they're not an overriding factor.
Okay, thanks.
Right, are there any further questions, David?
No, that's it, Chair.
No, right, I'll now open it up to the committee for debate and hopefully a recommendation. So over to the committee.
We have Councillor John Bastin first, Chair.
Yeah. Okay, John, over to you.
Right, so thanks very much. I have two concerns. I am not over 100% sold on the flooding issues. You're going to put quite a bit of concrete and brick on that area, and water has got to go somewhere. And I know that, okay, there's mitigation processes, but I've also got a site on my patch where we were promised the earth and it floods like mad even now, to the detriment of the people who live there. But the concern I really have is also the loss of a green space. There isn't any other green space there. And, you know, we're being told that we should be taking exercise and letting children sort of go out and enjoy the fresh air, as opposed to using all their other social media materials. I think we ought to really look at that and say we need a green space. Councillor Kaczmarek mentioned the allotment and the wetness. I mean, during the summer, there is an advantage to having a vaguely damp allotment for things to grow even faster and better. So I haven't really got a problem with that. But I would suggest perhaps we refuse it on the grounds of loss of green space and question marks over the flooding.
Yeah, are you proposing that, John?
Yes, I'll propose that.
Yeah, is there a seconder for that? Is it?
I don't know which one.
Sue Nicholas, your hand is that? Are you seconding that? Linda, are you seconding it, or did you want to speak?
No, I'd be happy to second that proposal.
Yeah, I'll take that. And did you want to speak at this stage?
No, thank you.
No. Right, so we've got other speakers there, David.
We have Councillor Kaczmarek, Chairman.
Yeah, over to you, Mark.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've read the paperwork in quite considerable detail and seen the letters of objection and the recent photographs have been sent through showing flooding along this road. However, this isn't public open space. It's not, and if we don't do anything, it will remain that way for quite a long time until someone else puts another plan application in. But I've been reading paragraph 60 on page 51 because a lot of people have been talking about the assets of community value. And it says that the owner cannot be compelled to sell to such group and cannot be prevented from going ahead with the intended disposal on the expiry of the moratorium. It finishes up saying compensation is payable for any loss or expense caused by the listing. So, you know, this is private land. I think people got to remember that, even though the public have been allowed to use it, but it's been rented to them. So it isn't a free-for-all for public. It didn't publicly access land. There were rental conditions put in. So I believe if the development does happen here, it will help to improve the flooding issues by putting in the appropriate drainage, which you won't see so much runoff coming off that land. And at the moment, it looks a bit of an eyesore. So Cambon Town Council has a responsibility to provide public open space and allotments. So, you know, really the ball has been there. This land's been available for quite a long time to try to do something with. So I'm happy to support the recommendation set out by the officer.
Thank you. David, have you got other speakers?
Yes, Councillor Nicholas, Chair.
Yeah, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, when you look at this, if this was in an open field a bit further out from this village, we wouldn't be agreeing it because it clearly is open green space. It concerns me that we are just destroying when we're supposed to have been declaring a climate emergency and protecting the green areas of our county, that we're encouraging people to build on what is very clearly a green space in the middle of a village. So I have grave concerns about, you know, accepting that. I'm sure they could find somewhere else. And after all, if it's a church thing that is supposed to be for communities, it's quite interesting that they're wanting to sell it off for planning.
Right, thank you. David, are there any further speakers?
Councillor Hurd's got his hand up, Chair.
Yeah, I as divisional member, I don't think I'll take a voice on that, but I don't think I'm bringing Councillor back.
Yeah, Councillor Hurd can't take part in the debate.
No.
In which case, I have no other speakers, Chairman.
Right, so I'll go over to Mr. Broomhead. Would you like to make a comment on the recommendation?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. There was two issues regarding green space, as I understand it, and flooding. Is that correct, Councillor Bastian?
Yes, Mark.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I would definitely not put in a flooding reason because I think we leave ourselves wide open for a possible costs claim on that when we got our experts actually stating that they're happy with a condition, and if a condition can overcome a reason, then we shouldn't be putting that down as a reason. Right. So I think you leave yourself wide open as a council if we refuse it on flooding grounds. Obviously, the greenfield site or green space is an issue that is a subjective issue, and obviously that has less risks, and I can formulate a reason for you based on that if that's what you wish me to do.
Yes, happy with that. I'll take your advice on that.
Right, the proposed event will result in the loss of an undeveloped greenfield site within the settlement, rather than open space. I would say greenfield site. The construction of two dwellings on the site would alter the character and appearance of the site, which provides an important green setting for pen ponds and holds visual amenity value as an open space area. The pros are conflicts with the aims and intentions of policies 1, 2 and 23 of the Cornwall Local Plan and paragraphs 8, 127 and 170 of the MPPR.
Right, happy with that, thank you.
Are you happy with that, Linda?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Yeah, right. So if there's no further speakers, David? No.
Yeah, Councillor Thomas, Mike Thomas, Chairman.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not been a seconder for Councillor Kazmarek, has there? I'm willing to second.
Yes. Well, that would be direct So at the moment we would be voting for refusal. If that fails, then you could bring back the approval, but as a direct opposite.
Okay, I thought because that's what was tabled by the officers, we went with that one first, but I take your point.
Yeah, no, what was the proposal I'm taking is the one that was proposed by Councillor Bastin, seconded by Councillor Taylor.
Okay, thank you.
If that fails, then I would be looking for another proposition. So that's what we'd be voting on. It would be voting for refusal. That's contrary to what the officer's recommendation is. So I'll hand it over to Angela to do the roll call.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Bastin.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
For.
Councillor Code.
Sorry, I have trouble with my button. I abstain.
Okay. Councillor Hawkins.
For.
Councillor Eakin-Smith.
For.
Councillor Harding.
For.
Councillor Kaczmarek.
Against.
Councillor Martin.
For.
Councillor Nicholas.
For.
Pascoe.
For.
Councillor Simmons.
For.
John Thomas.
For.
And Councillor Mike Thomas.
Against.
Thank you. I'll just count that up quickly. The application has been refused by 10 votes in favour, 1 against and 2 against and 1 abstention.
Right, thank you. So with that, we go on to the next application, which that's 44. That's PA20/10046, Varfel Farm, Varfel Lane, Long Rock. And I think Adam's taking us through that one.
Yes,
there, Adam?
yeah, thanks very much. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
we
just,
can hear you loud and clear. Are you sharing your screen, are you?
I am, yeah, I'll just pull the presentation up now.
Yeah, we can see that fine. So when you're ready, Adam.
Okay, 1 minute. Okay, so this is an application for the change of use of land for the siting of 49 caravans for seasonal agricultural workers and other associated works without compliance with conditions 3, 5 and 7 of application PA 10-05296, which was around 10 years ago. And the site in question is at Varfel Farm, which is situated along Varfel Lane near Long Rock. So the key issue, which we'll come back to at the end, is whether it's appropriate to allow the proposed development to continue in this location. So as you can see, the site occupies a countryside location just to the west and north of the A30 public highway. It's accessed off a country lane leading directly off the A30. Moving in a bit closer, you can see the land is laid entirely to hard standing, which is what the beige square is meant to denote, with agricultural buildings extending to the north and a scattering of residential dwellings to the northwest. And here's the aerial photograph showing the land laid to hard standing. You can see some existing caravans sited around the edge, but we'll get to the up-to-date photographs later on in the presentation. So this is the proposed site plan on the left-hand side of the image, showing in dark grey the position of the 49 caravans, as well as the access off the country lane. On the right-hand side is a typical image of the caravan, as well as typical floor plan and elevations as well. Onto the photographs. So the top photograph shows the access from the country lane, and the bottom two show the emerging visibility in either direction. Onto the next image, you can see this is taken from the access road just off the public highway. So the application site is behind the tree boundary there. It's not on the area where you can see the hard standing. There were buildings there before, but are no longer present. It's just behind the tree line there. You might be able to see some caravans just through the tree line. This is an overview of the site from the northeastern corner. These caravans are in situ. These photographs were taken at the end of last week. Just to give you an idea as to how it sits in the landscape. And some photographs taken from within the amongst the caravans themselves. So we acknowledge the proposal will be of a large scale in relation to its rural surrounds and would now be an ongoing rather than a temporary development as per the PA10 permission. However, in our view, allowing a continuation of the development in this location is considered to be adequately justified and would have well-balanced and mutually supportive economic, social and environmental benefits. So for that reason, the application is recommended for conditional approval. If I can just draw members' attention, I've got a slight verbal update here. In paragraph 8 of my report, page 69, I should clarify that the Ludgeford neighbourhood plan can be afforded significant weight rather than the limited weight that was put in the report. That said, it doesn't change the assessment in any way. I just thought I should clarify that the neighbourhood plan has more significant weight now. Also on page 50, paragraph 15 of the report, page 71, the reference to 39 caravans is incorrect. I've spoken to the enforcement officer and it's 24 caravans that are there with planning permission. The 39 caravan is apparently an out-of-date figure that was corrected previously but wasn't carried forward in the land agent's comments. So yeah, the figure should read 24 caravans, not 39 in paragraph 15, page 71. And that's the end of the presentation. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you, Adam. We have got speakers. The first one is Councillor Price Jones from Ludgeford Parish Council. Are you there, Councillor?
Chairman, he did join the meeting, but for some reason has left. Oh, hang on, he's just coming back in now.
Okay. Councillor Price Jones, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Chairman. Thank you.
Good afternoon and welcome to the meeting. It'll be our normal format. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. You'll have a prompt at 30 seconds and your time will start from when you start speaking. So over to you when you're ready.
Thank you very much. Yes, this was voted on in our Ludgeford Parish Council meeting last year, and I would refer the councillors and the chair to the comments that were made by Ludgeford Parish Council at the time. Our main concerns are the management of the site and adequate supervision. It should be noted that additional caravans requested under this application, some already in situ, although it is not known if they're occupied. It's further noted with respect to the caravans that the ones proposed to the site are 6 berth and that the maximum occupation should be 4. It is our concern that there could be other occupants added to these caravans at a future date without knowledge of either ourselves or the planning authority. The other thing we're interested in is how is this going to be policed? There are a lot of people there who are not known to the local area, are not familiar with the local area, and there has been quite a few cases of complaints from local residents, which I'm sure Councillor Elliott will refer to later. We would also echo in full the concerns listed by the case officer under item 17 in his report. In particular, he refers to the strong doubt in the fact that this will actually benefit the local economy, as by neither the accommodation, none of the workers have actually been recruited locally, and therefore not putting money back into the local economy, and also the operating company is not local, so the profits from that business will not benefit the local community. My final point is I would note that as in other cases, in opposition to other cases, our neighbourhood development plan, the referendum was delayed obviously because of COVID and has not been granted any weight in this application. That is the end of what I'd like to say. I'm sure Councillor Elliott will have further comments to make later.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. If you could just wait, there might be some questions for you. Sure. David, are there any questions?
Yes, Councillor Mike Thomas, Chair.
Yeah, over to you, Mike.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. Could you just be clear? I'm sorry to go back to your viewpoint of this. Is Ludgeford Parish Council supporting this overall?
We have supported it, but with severe recommendations. I think these are listed in Mr. Carlisle's case report, item 10.
It's on page 70. I have them in front of me.
Yeah.
But the general feeling is that you support it, but you're saying that there are reservations.
No, the reservations are the reservations that we put in our report. Although it is a support, those reservations that are in Councillor Adam Carlisle's report are our reservations.
Thank you.
Thank you. David, have you got any further questions?
No, Chairman.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for attending, Councillor Price-Jones.
Thank you.
With that, we go on to the next speaker. It's Mr. Peter Whitehead. Can you hear me, Mr. Whitehead?
I can indeed, Chairman.
Yeah. Good afternoon and welcome to the meeting.
Good afternoon.
It's the usual format. It will be 3 minutes and then we'll give you a prompt at 30 seconds and your time will start from when you start speaking. So whenever you're comfortable, over to you.
Thank you. Chairman, this is an application to renew a planning permission granted by Cornwall Council in 2010. Your officer's report makes a strong case for approval, confirming that the application meets the requirements of all planning policies, as it did in 2010. And you will also note the support of the Parish Council and all your consultees. Indeed, in my view, nothing has changed since 2010 that could reasonably lead to the Council reaching a different decision today. Policy 7 of your local plan supports the provision of accommodation for seasonal workers where there is an essential need. There is an essential need for these caravans. The business cannot function without suitable accommodation for its seasonal workers, and the essential need for these caravans is strongly supported by your own land agent. Reference has been made to the scale of the development, but the current application proposes the same number of caravans as 2010, and in the meantime, the scale of the business has grown. The applicant's now farming an additional 1,000 acres of land. I would also highlight that much of the accommodation the applicants have used for their seasonal workers in the past is no longer available or suitable, making it all the more crucial for the applicants to source their own accommodation. There would be no logic to scattering the 49 caravans around the 2,800 acres of land the business farms, as individual fields may only be visited a few times each season. It is efficient, logical, to contain the accommodation on a single site at the farm's main base, Farfell Farm. Chairman, in conclusion, therefore, what is proposed is an entirely proportionate development to the scale of the business. I would also highlight that the 49 caravans are not sited on a greenfield site, but within the footprint of a glass house that was demolished last summer. The site is well screened by hedges and trees, and the caravans have a very limited impact in the landscape. We note the points raised by the small number of local residents. However, these residents live a considerable distance from the site, and the proposal clearly complies with the Council's normal residential standards. Your officers clearly concur with this conclusion and identify no conflict with policy. Chairman, approval of this application will demonstrably support the local economy. Approval of this application will demonstrably support the local economy, safeguard local jobs, and going forward support the continued growth of this vital local business. We therefore ask you to support approval of this application with the conditions recommended by your officers. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Mr. Whitehead. If you could just wait, I think there's some questions from members. David, have you got the list?
Yep, Councillor Bastin, Chairman.
Yeah, right, John.
Right, thank you, Chair. Could I ask Mr. Jarrett, how confident are you can find sufficient workers to fill these? It's a kind of it's a bit of a loaded question, but with the current sort of Brexit situation, I'm just wondering where you're going to find the workers from.
Just to be clear, Chairman, I'm not Mr. Jarrett. The applicant will be speaking presently. I'm the agent, Mr. Peter Whitehead.
Sorry, Mr. Whitehead. I was going ahead of myself, but the question's the same anyway.
I can answer the question. I believe the caravans are already occupied. The 49 caravans are in situ and are already occupied by seasonal workers.
Right. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Any further questions, David?
Yes, Councillor Pascoe, Chair.
Yeah. Lionel?
Yeah. Thank you, Roger. Yeah, we've heard what the Parish Council wanted in numbers going in the caravans. Do you know exactly what numbers you're are planning to put in these caravans, mobile homes?
There's been considerable discussion about the occupancy of the caravans with the council's officers and indeed with Councillor Elliott. We can assure the council that planning condition imposed, which restricts the occupation of the caravans to 4 residents, will be complied with. There's a reasonable condition, and we have no objection to the imposition of that condition.
Thank you.
Thank you. David, are there any further questions?
Councillor Sue Nicholas, Chair.
Yeah. Sue?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just getting a bit confused. Are we now saying on this application that there won't be a kind of like accommodation area? Was it a social or utility area additional to the caravans?
It doesn't form part of this application that's before you. The original application in 2010 showed an amenity building in the southwest corner of the site, which I think is shown on the site layout. The building in question was surveyed by the applicants and myself in more recent months, and the building that was there was clearly not fit for purpose. It was not suitable for conversion. So the revised site layout included the removal of that building. I understand the applicants are looking at a further application for an amenity building, but that will be dealt with separate to the applications before you today.
Could you tell me how the plumbing and the waste is fixed on this site? Are they been hard set into the site?
There are drainage pipes beneath the hard standing. As I mentioned in my presentation, there was a large greenhouse or large glass house on the site, which has been removed. As part and parcel of the preparation of the site, the applicants have laid pipes cut through the hard standing and laid pipes for drainage purposes, both for foul and for surface water. There is a flood risk assessment which has been submitted with the application, which identifies the disposal of surface water by a series of soakaways cut into the concrete, and those I believe are being installed.
And water supply?
Mains water is being supplied to the site.
And to all the caravans?
It's possibly a question that the applicant can answer in a minute, but I believe so, yes.
Okay, thank you.
David, are there any further questions?
Councillor Taylor, Chair.
Yeah, Linda?
Thank you. Could I just ask, how many of the workers are actually local, please?
Again, it's possibly a question that is best raised with the applicant, but I believe that few are local. This is a question, again, that was raised by the parish council and indeed Councillor Elliott. The applicants have promoted the site and promoted the jobs locally, but there has been very low take-up, given perhaps the nature of the work. So most of the applicants are sourced from abroad. But I can assure you that we have promoted the site and the jobs locally, but as I say, there's been limited take-up.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Are there any further questions, David?
No other questions, Chair.
Right, thank you very much for attending, Mr. Whitehead, and answering the questions. The next speaker we got is Mr. Matt Jarrett. Can you hear me, Mr. Jarrett?
Chairman, it's Angela from Democratic Services. I had to mute Mr. Jarrett as I was picking up background noise. So, Mr. Jarrett, if you can hear me, you need to press *6 on your telephone.
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you very much.
Right. Welcome, Mr. Jarrett. It's the usual format that you'll have 3 minutes to speak. We'll give you a prompt at 30 seconds and your time will start when you start speaking. So over to you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Jarrett from Varfell Farm. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to talk about the application and our leading business here in Cornwall. Daffodils brightens up people's lives and well-being in these difficult times. As you have seen, your land agent has strongly supported this application. Varfell Farms is the largest and leading grower, distributor and packer of daffodils globally. We produce annually 500 million flowers and 7,000 tonnes of bulbs. 90% of the world daffodil production is from the UK. Of that, 80% is here in Cornwall. Annually, the industry contributes 150 million to the local economy, putting daffodils in the top 2 of Cornish industries. We farm 2,881 acres, we employ 52 full-time staff and 600 seasonal staff. We have a significant number of local contractors and suppliers, plus we rent land from 60 landlords across the county. Our customer base includes all of the UK supermarkets. We also export to Europe, USA and Dubai. All our flowers are hand-picked. We harvest daffodils from December to April. We then have unique summer flowers and then lift the bulbs, and sterilisation and replanting. All these jobs are labour intensive. The accommodation is absolutely crucial to the need of the business. Quite simply, without the accommodation, we cannot employ people to harvest our crops and the business would fail. The application is for the same number of accommodation units that was approved in 2010. The application will ensure the business will invest in the best accommodation facilities, ensuring we can attract people from around the world to work on the farm, allowing a strong future for the business. Historically, the business has used surf lodges and holiday accommodation, which is now not seen suitable or not available in these changing times. The site is managed by a dedicated team from accommodation managers, maintenance and welfare staff to support our colleagues and reduce any impact to the local community. COVID-19 and the risk has brought the development up the agenda, allowing us to reduce the risk to the business and our colleagues on site. By managing them in bubbles, we have worked closely with Public Health England on the run-up to the season, ultimately reducing any spread of the disease. To conclude, this application is business critical to the future of our global leading business. We therefore ask you to support the approval of this application. Thank you very much for your time.
Right, thank you, Mr. Jarrett. If you could just wait, just in case there are some questions for you. David, have you got any questions?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Nicholas.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Jarrett, for that. Just three, really. I asked your agent, but he said to refer to you. Is there a water supply to each caravan provided?
Yes, water supply to each caravan. So in all intents and purposes, each unit is self-contained with shower, toilet and cooking facilities within the unit.
Right, okay. And the number, it's getting a bit confusing with 24s, 39s. Are we talking about 49 caravans in total?
49 is under this new application, yes. Total on the site will be a total of 75.
So 75 doesn't seem to be anywhere in this. The other thing that I was just a bit concerned of on paragraph 15, page 71, which you may or may not have seen, it says that the majority of the fields and the land that you're using is rented between 3 and 5 years. Does that imply that in 3 to 5 years you may or may not have that amount of land?
Yeah, the land is always in crop rotation, so we look for longer than 5 years. Our bulbs are in the ground for 5 years, and then we'll come out and move our bulbs onto the next land parcel available. We normally rotate with the brassica growers around when we lift our bulbs. Okay. So the land will not decrease; it will only increase with our plan.
And the other one is, are you going to kind of do some planting to make your caravan site a little bit more user-friendly and green than just a horrible concrete base all over the place?
Absolutely, yeah. We've got some planting schemes, and to break that up, we want to attract workers to the farm at Barfell, and the accommodation is key to that. So yes, it will be an ongoing project to continuously improve.
Yeah, I think it's important, especially if there's a lot of foreign nationals who, are visiting our country as well.
Yeah, right.
No, absolutely.
Thank you.
Right, I think we've had a good bash of that, Sue. David, have you got any further questions?
No, Chair.
No. Right, thank you very much for attending this afternoon, Mr. Jarrett.
Thank you.
And answering the questions. Right, we've now gone to the divisional member, and that's Councillor Simon Elliott. Are you there, Simon?
I am. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, right, Simon. It's usual for divisional member 5 minutes, and if you get up to 5 minutes, we'll ask you to start winding up. So over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I asked for this to come to committee because it's a incredibly sensitive case in the local area. There are houses close to it, and unfortunately this was brought to a pre-application back in the end of the summer, autumn, which was then withdrawn, and then without any consultation with the local people, the caravans started arriving on site. Now, whether there's a confusion over whether or not the planning had already started and whether they have permitted development, this has caused an incredible amount of upset from Gulville to Ludgvan Churchtown, and I can tell you I have had more phone calls on this case than any in the time I've been a councillor. So this is not a popular change in the local area. Whilst 10 years ago there was permission for 49 caravans, only a very small number were ever put on site, and in fact the original letter from the agent said that planning permission had never been activated. Yes, at the time Ludgvan Parish Council supported the 49. There was a clear 10-year limit on that, and these caravans were put in, I think, within about 2 days of, or the planning application was put in within 2 days of the previous planning coming to an end, effectively to try and add on time to that previous application. So, as far as I'm concerned, this is coming to us at a very difficult start that has caused a lot of angst locally. I do note that the applicants have tried to advertise jobs amongst the local population, but those are for the flower fields, the picking jobs and so on, which are, as we know, are never popular with the local residents. So I understand they have to have foreign jobs, but in terms of the benefit to the local community, Mr. Jarrett told me that many of the back office functions were moved to up country, up to their head offices. So a lot of the local people who used to work here no longer work for Varfell. Therefore, in terms of the benefit to the local community, you have a large number of workers being brought in, the profits and so on are going to the head office company, and therefore I would question the local benefit of this. When we look at sorry, just someone else in the office. When we look at the development here, I think we are being faced with yes, this business will not survive without these caravans. But I think in terms of the local benefit, I'm yet to be persuaded that this is going to have a significant effect. Yes, without these, the daffodils won't be there. So I brought this to planning committee because I'm incredibly uneasy about the idea of this becoming a permanent fixture with no controls. I have had complaints from local residents saying they are seeing sort of larger groups milling around, and I have referred that. So in terms of the management of the site, I think we need to have very tight controls in place to ensure that this is managed as we're being promised, that it's being landscaped as we are being promised, and so on. In terms of the field rental, I noted the report on the items on page 71, and I would not be happy with this becoming a permanent fixture without some ability to redress periodically, and therefore maybe a time limit of 5 to 10 years before it needs to come back for planning would be an appropriate condition to be put to ensure that it is developed as we are being promised, and not as we're seeing the photos as they are now. So I'll come back to it that yes, the Ludgvan Neighbourhood Plan mentions that this is a business development site. It wasn't talking about accommodation per se. Yes, the Parish Council approved it, requesting conditions this time and 10 years ago, but it is not supported by many, well, in fact, any of the local residents that I have spoken to, and therefore this is in a way a strategic planning permission. Is this such a big thing that we need to make sure that this is permitted? And if it is, what conditions are appropriate to protect the local community? This is in a zone of impact on the SSSI. If this was a housing estate, it would not get permission right there, or not without severe conditions. So I'm asking committee to review this, consider what are the appropriate safeguards to put in place on it. And one of those I would ask is that this is a time limited as the 2010 one was. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Are there any questions for Simon? David, have you got any questions?
Yes, Councillor Nicholas, Chair.
Yeah. So,
thank you. Thanks, Simon. I'm just trying to work out. So in total, there's going to be 75 caravans on this site, because we're talking about 49 here. But where are the other caravans at present? Have you any idea where they are on this site?
Yes, they're around the edge where you can see the yellow ones that are there. So there was the plot in the middle was glass houses which were demolished because they were coming to end of life, but they were demolished. So the caravans that are in dark on the diagram are the new ones. The remainders are around the site, making 75 caravans, and I think those have permission for more than 4 people in them, the other ones. So that's a minimum of 300 workers there. If you do 75 times 4, so 300 to 400 workers on that site.
So they're in that top section as well, above the outline.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay.
And have been for many years.
Yeah, thanks.
David, have we got any further questions for Simon?
Yes, Councillor Taylor, Chair.
Yeah. Linda?
Lovely, thank you. Simon, good afternoon. Simon, listening to what you've said about the concerns of residents, if they were assured from the discussions today that there is going to be planned and structure in relation to the occupants of these caravans and how they need to understand about the community they live on, would that give your residents reassurance going forward?
I think there has to be far better consultation. This is a huge, it's effectively a new village in a village, and therefore it has to see its place within the context of the surrounding residential areas. It is rural, but it is important that if you imagine you had 400 people suddenly plonked next to your village without consultation, you're going to be a bit miffed. So it's the landscaping, traffic management, and all of those aspects. We've got to see those clearly identified, and I don't feel as yet the residents feel that they are being listened to strongly enough.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you. David, have you got any other questions?
Councillor Kaczmarek, Chair.
Over to you, Mark.
Thank you. Simon, have you asked the company if they will be prepared to set up a liaison with you and the parish councils and the community? Because I've always found liaison groups work really well.
I haven't had that. They did promise the last time I went there, and I have to say I visited the site. The setup is very professional, and they did promise that they were going to consult with the local community more, but I haven't had any evidence of that coming through so far. So yes, as with the heliport, a condition on a consultation group would be excellent.
Thank you. David, are there any further questions?
Mike Thomas, Chair.
Yeah, over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Sam, for your comments. Are there any additional conditions on the pages 79 to 81 that you feel should be really added? I mean, a lot of what has been said strike me as being outside of the actual remit of planning, but they are certainly things that could be done, and certainly the liaison within the local community is very important. But are there any particular conditions that you think have not been included?
Thank you. As per the previous plan, I believe this should be time limited.
Yeah.
And therefore 5-10 years. I don't think it is unreasonable. We already have the plan in place. We understand the issue for it to come back to the planning officers. And I think now that they are there, it doesn't need to come back to committee every time. But I do think there should be a periodic review of whether this is an appropriate site and use.
Okay, thank you.
Right, thank you. Were there any further questions, David?
I have no further questions, Chairman.
So with that, are there any questions of the officers? Have you got any, David?
No, Chair.
Yeah. I just got a couple tomorrow. Just
let's go.
Yeah. Right. We'll go. Lionel, if you'd like to come in first.
Sorry, I haven't got a question. I was going to make a comment, that's all.
Yeah, we'll come in the committee in a moment then.
Thank you.
Yeah, just before we go to committee, there's just a couple of questions I've got for Mark, which is unusual. Just for accuracy, 75 in total has been mentioned, but previously it was 24 and 49, which I may get 73. So is it 73 or 75, just for the accuracy?
Well, from the planning history, there was a permission for 24 that's been implemented some time ago. Obviously, this is 49, which is 73. I'm not sure whether there was any subsequent or other applications for the other two that the agent mentioned. But as far as
Mark,
my
can I
record,
on that point?
Yeah.
I spoke to the enforcement officer this morning and at the end of last week, and she's indicated that I think two of them, she's aware of two further caravans, which I don't believe, you know, are in the public interest to enforce against. But I think there are two further caravans that are outside of the previous permissions. So that's probably what takes it to 75. Whereas, like Councillor Harding was saying, the figures of 24 and 49 add up to two just beneath that.
And just save time when we get into the debate. It was mentioned that it ought to be a condition of a time limit, maybe 5 or 10 years. Have you got a comment on that one? And the final one is the fact is that it's already in use. If members were reminded to go for a deferment, what would your opinion be on that? I just ask those questions before we get in the debate.
Obviously, we've already given a 10-year time limit before. The government advice is we shouldn't keep renewing time limits as temporary. It comes to a stage where we need to consider whether it's suitable as a permanent site or not. I bet obviously it's up to members whether they want to give another temporary 10 years. Obviously,
Does it make any difference that is a different number than previously?
It's the same number as 49 as per the previous application.
Right.
There was one other part you mentioned.
Yeah, no, I just wondering, Simon, when he spoke, he was saying about lack of consultation. If members reminded along that line, the fact that it's already in use, it wouldn't be any sort of, you know, urgency on time as such. But just asking an opinion on that before it comes up in the debate.
Yeah, we have. I'm just trying to find. We gave a when we did the Biffa waste application, we had a condition, if I can recall, that they're the representatives that the neighbours could contact if they had any issues, and then it could be dealt with between those two parties. Whilst the debate's going, I'll see if I can find that.
Yeah. Okay then. Right. So we'll. Lionel, did you want to ask a question, or do you want to speak in the debate? I was just going to go into committee.
Speak in the debate, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Well, you're quite welcome to ask a question, Mark, in debate. So I'll open it up for debate and sort of for somebody to bring a proposition forward eventually. So David, if you can give me any of the list of any of the speakers, please.
Well, we have to start with first one I've got is Mark Kaczmarek.
Yeah, over to you, Mark.
All right. Thank you, Chairman. Many years ago, I was fortunate enough to work with set up to help provide suitable accommodation for migrant workers. We used to have them, and there were cases of 10 or 15 live into a caravan. You know, these gang masters were ripping them off, and from that there we've actually as a council done really well in identifying good sites and good accommodation for migrant workers. So, you know, this scheme here I think is a really good scheme and will provide good accommodation. However, I do feel that we do need to have a condition on it, because at some stage people might stop buying flowers and you know, the land that's being rented at the moment might go over more to agricultural use for ground stuff you can eat. So so having a condition on it I think is good, and I would suggest another 10 years on that one. I noticed in the paperwork we have no report from the police, and quite often when you have large groups of people living in one location, we do normally have to have a comment from the police. So I don't know how this site will be policed, and whether this will put pressure on the local police force. But no, I think it's welcomed. I think 4 people maximum per caravan, and it is in the location which suits the business. So I'm happy to support the plan application as it is, but with those conditions on a 10-year condition on it, and maybe getting some information on how the site will be policed in the future.
All right. Is there a seconder for that?
Yes. Yes.
Sorry, is it Councillor Mike Thomas? I can't quite. There's 2 or 3 people speaking.
Yeah.
You're seconding that, Mike.
My name is up to speak after Lionel, but I'm not sure if Lionel wants to second, but I'm happy to second.
Yeah.
If Lionel wants
if you want to second it, I'll go to Lionel in a minute. But if you want to second, you're quite welcome to speak now or come back later. Whichever.
No, nothing to add. Couldn't add anything. Mark said it all.
Yeah. Okay then. Lionel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I should like to make a comment. I will agree with what Councillor Kaczmarek has said, but with the experience of around where I live, we got SEF here with another 50, 60, 70 caravans living there, and they've had the odd site where they got 5 or 6 caravans, which, to be quite honest with you, those 5 or 6 caravans have been creating more problems than what the big sites are doing. So I think it's a good idea to have all of these caravans on one site, and they will be looked after properly by the people that are living around them. So I'm glad to I would be willing to second it as well, but Mike has done that. Thank you.
Well, thank you. David, have we got any other speakers?
Councillor Nicholas, Chair.
Yeah. So
thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I agree. The bits I would like to see in it is that there is a liaison group set up between the owners and the local community. As Simon has already said, that was set up when the heliport was being discussed, so that there's an ongoing discussion between the owners and the local residents, so that any problems can be identified fairly quickly. The time limited, I'm not sure about 10 years. I was thinking more 5, because in the paperwork we have, it says the majority of the fields are rented for between 3 and 5 years. And with the way the world is changing at the minute, maybe it should be 5 years rather than 10, but I'm not that precious about that. And then also somewhere about, I'd like some reassurance that the health and welfare of the workers is being dealt with on a regular basis. So it's all that tied in. But yeah, no, I don't see a problem with it as long as we can get some of these in place.
Thank you. Got any other speakers, David?
No, Chairman.
No. Mark Kaczmarek, coming back to you about the liaison group, do you feel you could perhaps incorporate?
Yeah, that's something I should have included in my in my recommendation, but I think setting up a liaison group is vital. Not only will it help the residents on site, but it helps us off site. Okay.
Yeah, and you're just, you heard what Sue said. Are you're keeping the 10 years, are you?
I think 10 years is reasonable. It's a large investment, this amount of mobile homes, but I think 10 years is reasonable.
Yeah, and Mike Thomas, are you happy with the addition of the liaison group?
Yes, if that can be incorporated into planning, superb. Yeah, I think that any consultation within the area liaison between the people who are living in that small settlement and with the nearby village is very, very important. Going back to the time period, I can understand the cost issue, but I wonder whether there's a capacity for a mid-term review, so that there could be some way of actually just seeing how things are going. But that might be outside the focus of this of planning. But I think having a close eye on it is important.
Yeah, I'll go back to Mr. Broomhead for a comment on that now.
Okay. Well, as I advised earlier, that obviously temporary permissions, we shouldn't keep granting them, but I understand members want to grant a temporary period. I would suggest you stick to the 10 years, because obviously there's quite a big investment. And I think the following condition in terms of the liaison group, because some of the development's already started, within 3 months of the date of this permission, the operator shall have submitted and approved in writing by the local planning authority a timetable and details of arrangements for regular local liaison group meetings to take place during the operational life of the development being carried out by Farfell Farms. The details shall include the constitution of the group and the frequency of meetings. The operators shall be responsible for convening and hosting these meetings, taking minutes and distributing papers. The meeting shall take place in accordance with approved details.
Yeah,
you happy with that?
Mark Kasmarek.
Yeah, very happy with that.
Thomas, are you happy with that?
Yes, happy.
Yeah.
Happy.
Right, David, have we still got no further speakers?
No, Chair.
No, right. Over to you, Angela, for roll call. What we'll be voting on is the recommendation as printed for approval, and it's with the conditions that's been added, which is roughly the 10-year condition and the actually liaison group within 3 months of permission being granted. So over to you, Angela.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Bastin.
Oh.
Sorry, Councillor Bastin, I didn't catch that.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
4.
Councillor Coe.
4.
Councillor Hawkins.
4.
Councillor Eakin-Smith.
4.
Councillor Harding.
4.
Councillor Hurd.
4.
Councillor Kaczmarek.
4.
Councillor Martin.
4.
Councillor Nicholas.
4.
Councillor Pascoe.
4.
Councillor Simmons.
4.
Councillor John Thomas.
4.
Mike Thomas.
4.
Yeah, I can confirm that has been unanimously approved with those extra conditions.
Right, thank you very much. Right, I think it's, by my watch, it's near enough 1:30, so we'll take half an hour lunch break. If everybody could be back prompt, we've still got 2 further applications to deal with. And if I could just remind members to switch off their mics.
Chairman, just for the benefit of the public, as we'll be reconvening at 2 o'clock, we do have a second live stream. So if anybody is listening and they're interested in the applications that are further on the agenda, they'll have to listen via the second live stream that's advertised on the website.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Rowena will tell me when that started at 2, was it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay then. Right. See you later, everybody.